like the other stuff. That's what I thought we would hear. Too. This probably wouldn't have worked on your phone then. Well, maybe. Yeah. You would hear the other stuff jibber jabbering, but I guess. Okay. You didn't push that start thing. Push start thing to get it off mute. Here's something else. Mm-hmm. Well, he did say he'd be number 3, so maybe he's doing other, doing the other presentations. I don't know.
Ms. Monaghan, we can hear all of the conversation that's going on. You may want to mute yourself.
Okay.
Recording in progress.
Good evening, everybody. Today is May 16th at 7 p.m. I want to first, before I adjourn the meeting, apologize for a delayed response. Right before the meeting started, both my laptop and my iPad needed a password change, and apparently I'm in the 20% of the self-healing BIOS backup processing right now. So I just want to let you know, Mr. Ameri, that's where I'm at right now. So, but we still are live through the city clerk on Zoom and on YouTube and other platforms. So I'd like to call this meeting to order, and I'd like to ask Council Member Francisco Zarmeño to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
That's right.
Thank you. Now I'd like to ask the city clerk to take roll, please.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, thank you. Good evening. Councilmember Andrews.
Present.
Councilmember Bonilla Jr.
Present.
Councilmember Goldstein.
Present.
Councilmember Roach.
Present.
Councilmember Syrup.
Present.
Councilmember Cermeño.
Presente.
Mayor Salinas.
Present. Thank you. I'd like to ask our city attorney if he could give our closed session announcements, please.
Greetings, Mayor and Council. I apologize for my informal appearance. As you know, I'm preparing for a city attorney conference. I'm reporting on 2 prior closed sessions, which were special meetings, as well as tonight. First, the council met on April 24th at 7 p.m. with all members present to confer with its labor bargaining team regarding all units. Closed session adjourned at 9:15 p.m. There is no reportable action. Second, the council met on May 2nd at 5:30 p.m. with all members present to confer with legal counsel regarding pending litigation, the matter of Parker and the Workers' Compensation Appeals Board. Council gave direction to legal counsel, but otherwise took no reportable action. The council also conferred with its labor bargaining team regarding all units, and the council took no reportable action. Finally, the council discussed the city manager's annual performance evaluation and took no reportable action. The closed session adjourned at 6:50 p.m. The council met this evening at 5 p.m. with all members present to confer with legal counsel regarding pending litigation, matter of City of Hayward versus Sobra. The council gave direction to legal counsel, but otherwise took no reportable action. Finally, the council discussed the city manager's annual performance evaluation and took no reportable action. Closed session adjourned at approximately 6:50 p.m. As to the performance evaluations, the council conducts those evaluations annually for the 3 reporting officers to the council. And otherwise, that completes the report. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. City Attorney. I'd like to now proceed to, we have 3 special presentations. And, oh, let me see if I can. The good news, Madam City Clerk, is I'm now live again. Okay. We have 3 special presentations, and the first special presentation, I'd like to have Councilmember Bonilla, if you could, hold that for me. Our first special presentation is to acknowledge National Police Week in Hayward. Also to acknowledge Peace Officers Memorial Day, and I'd like to call upon Interim Chief Brian Matthews, if you could. I guess you can stay there right now. I'll go down there in a minute, but I did want to acknowledge you. So this is our annual proclamation honoring National Police Week and Peace Officers Memorial Day. Whereas in 1962, President John F. Kennedy signed Public Law 87-726, designating May 15th as Peace Officers Memorial Day, and the week in which May 15th falls as National Police Week. And whereas police officers throughout our country are dedicated citizens whose lives are committed to protecting and serving families, businesses, neighborhoods, schools, and committees. And whereas each year between 150 and 200 peace officers across the nation are killed in the line of duty, making the ultimate sacrifice to the communities they protect. And whereas the city of Hayward owes a debt of gratitude to 5 brave members of its police department who have given the ultimate sacrifice in the course of their duties. George E. Vieira, shot September 16, 1929, while attempting to arrest an armed robber. Bobby L. McSabden, killed August 4th, 1972, while pursuing a wanted suspect. Robert J. Reed, strangled June 29th, 1974, by a prisoner in the jail. Benjamin Worcester, stabbed March 25th, 1987, during a struggle with a violent parolee. And recently, Scott Lunger, shot July 22nd, 2015, during a traffic stop. And whereas the members of the police department of the city of Hayward play an essential role in safeguarding the rights and freedoms of the people of Hayward, and whereas it is important that all persons of the Hayward community know and understand the problems, duties, and responsibilities of their police department, and that members of our police department recognize their duty to serve the people by safeguarding life and property, by protecting them against violence or disorder, and by protecting the innocent against deception and the weak against oppression or intimidation. And whereas the police department of the city of Hayward has grown to be a modern and scientific law enforcement agency which unceasingly provides a vital public service. Now, therefore, I, Mark Salinas, Mayor of the City of Hayward, do hereby proclaim the week of May 14th, 2023 through May 20th, 2023 as National Police Week in Hayward, and Monday, May 15th, 2023 as Peace Officers Memorial Day in the City of Hayward, and encourage all members of Hayward community and all patriotic, civil, and educational organizations to honor those individuals with appropriate ceremonies who, through courageous deeds, gave their lives or have become disabled in the line of duty for our safety, and express appreciation to those who continue to dedicate themselves to making Hayward a safer place which to live. Let's give our men and women, the Hayward Police Department, a big round of applause. So now I'd like to ask the council if we can join Interim Chief Matthews and his command staff and his colleagues, if we can take a group photo, and then I believe Mr. Matthews has a few words to say.
Okay, I'll be brief. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I just want to thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule, not only to recognize the men and women of the Hayward Police Department, but the very difficult and dangerous job that we ask them to do every day to keep our community safe. It is sobering to know that every year, additional names are added to our nation's monuments, and listening to the names of our HPD fallen heroes is a reminder of the scars we all wear from the losses we've experienced. During my time at the FBI National Academy, I heard a speaker who said tragedies are terrible opportunities to waste, and I wholeheartedly believe that. And for us, we cherish the opportunity to honor the memory of those we've lost by caring for this community, by caring for each other, and continuing the important work they dedicated their lives to. So thank you for keeping their memory alive, and thank you for your continued support. We would not be successful without you. Thank you very much.
And Chief Matthews, if you can, of course, please tell your team to always be safe out there. Thank you. Okay, next we have, please. I promise it's going to be a short meeting. Okay. Next, we have a proclamation presented to East Bay Housing organizations, and I believe online we have Sean Johnson, board member and director of community partnerships at Eden Housing. Is that correct? Okay. Let me see if we see. Oh, there he is. How you doing, Sean?
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Mayor Salinas. Hopefully everyone can hear me correctly, and my apologies for not being there in person. I'm having some mobility issues at the moment.
No problem, but before you make a comment, let me read the proclamation, and then I'll give you an opportunity to talk, okay?
Well, my apologies.
No sweat. No, I know. No. Excellent. Thank you, sir. Okay. So this is in honor of East Bay Housing Organizations and Affordable Housing Month. Whereas quality affordable homes are vital to healthy, safe, and racially just communities, and whereas even before current high inflation rates, increasing housing costs led longtime residents to be displaced, live in overcrowded homes, or experience homelessness, threatening our region's racial diversity and economic opportunity. And whereas the state of California's COVID-19 emergency declaration has been terminated and the short-term protections afforded to renters, including eviction moratoria during the pandemic, are coming to an end, requiring long-term sustainable solutions to promote housing security and mitigate mass displacement. And whereas stable, affordable homes are the solution to homelessness and support seniors, families, youth, veterans, people with disabilities or special needs, and our whole community. And whereas jurisdictions such as the city of Hayward are on their 6th cycle housing element, their plan to meet the housing needs of their community, and are now accountable to implement programs and policies that promote affordable development and affirmatively further fair housing for low-income communities and communities of color. And whereas local housing organizations are continuing to recognize May 2023 as Bay Area Affordable Housing Month because regional action to a growing regional housing crisis is an essential part of recovery from a pandemic and the work to ensure that everyone has an affordable and stable home. And whereas East Bay Housing Organizations has organized Affordable Housing Week for 27 years, acknowledging the need for and benefits of affordable homes. Now, therefore, I, Mark Salinas, the mayor of the city of Hayward, do hereby proclaim the month of May 2023 as Affordable Housing Month. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give affordable housing organizations a big round of applause. Mr. Johnson, okay, the mic is yours, sir.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, and thank you for having me this evening. My name is Sean Johnson. I am a representative with Eden Housing and also a board member with East Bay Housing Organizations. East Bay Housing Organizations, also known as EBHO, works to mobilize the power and wisdom of our members to produce, preserve, and protect affordable housing opportunities for low-income communities in the East Bay. To meet our mission, EBHO partners with our members to deepen our impact in local communities and fortify the housing justice movement and advance systemic policy change. I would like to thank Mayor Salinas and the council for recognizing Affordable Housing Month and affirming our commitment to affordable housing. Throughout May, EBHO members and staff are going to organize 15 public events to highlight affordable housing and housing justice efforts throughout our many communities. Our programming this year includes celebrations and days of action, panel discussions, tenant rights workshops, and much, much more. There are also grand opening and groundbreaking events of our new affordable housing communities, like the one we just celebrated yesterday at Granite Ridge and Fremont, that showcase and celebrate what is possible with when community members, nonprofit, and local government agencies come together. You can view this full list of our events at our website at ebho.org/events. And I invite the mayor, city council members, and all those in attendance to participate in some, if not all, of our Affordable Housing Month events. While many of us have adjusted to the new normal, some of our neighbors are struggling to navigate housing insecurities, rising costs, and their rights as tenants. We all know that when we uplift and center the most affected by the housing crisis, it strengthens our entire community. We celebrate Affordable Housing Month as a call to action, to bring attention to the affordable housing crisis, to lift up solutions, and to celebrate our achievements. And we need you all with us to do so. In a time of political division and distraction, we can all work together to ensure a racially and economically just East Bay where everyone has safe, stable, and affordable housing. I'm going to repeat that again. Everyone has safe, stable, and affordable housing. There are so many opportunities to get involved. And we hope you join us this month to build new or even strengthen existing relationships as we move forward on our journey for housing justice. On behalf of Eden Housing and the members of the East Bay Housing Organizations, I again thank you for this honor, and we hope to see you at the next Affordable Housing Month event. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. And let's give all the affordable housing professionals out there another big round of applause. Thank you. Okay, thank you, sir. Next, we have another special accommodation, and I'm going to hand this over to Mayor Pro Tem Andrews to help me. This was an interesting an interesting story. One day, I got an email from a Robert Monaghan, and he had explained to me this story about how his mom, who I believe her birthday. I don't know if it's. I forget if Miss Monaghan's birthday is today, but I think it might have been this weekend. There she is, Meaty Monaghan, and so Mr. Monaghan called me, who is her son, and said that she was having a birthday. But the caveat to the story is this: is that Miss Monaghan is the first African American teacher in Hayward Unified School District. Right? And she was a teacher at Markham Elementary School, right there on 6th Street. There's the classroom right there. And so, Markham Elementary School today is no longer Markham because it's Faith Ringgold Elementary School. But I went to, and coincidentally, Robert Monaghan also went to Hayward High, go Farmers. But a lot of Hayward High students came from, either East Avenue or Markham, went from Markham to Bret Harte and then to Hayward High. Anyways, Miss Monaghan, her birthday, in honor of her birthday, we had arranged to have a certificate of accommodation for her. On the call today is, of course, Miss Monaghan herself and her son Robert, but also joining us by way of Zoom is interim superintendent of the Hayward Unified School District, Chen Wu Fernandez, and of course the president of the Hayward School Board, Peter Buffette, is also joining us online, and so let me read the certificate of accommodation. And I did not arrange this, but I'll have Mr. Buffette, if he can maybe say a word or two in celebrating Miss Monaghan's birthday. But let me read the accommodation, and then I'll turn to Mr. Buffette. And then I believe Ms. Monaghan also has a word or two that she'd like to say afterwards. So let me read the accommodation, and I believe here it is. Certificate of Commendation. Whereas Ms. Meady Monaghan was the first African-American teacher in Hayward, California, and whereas Ms. Monaghan began her teaching career at the age of 22 as one of 4 black student teachers at San Jose State College, now San Jose State University, and whereas Ms. Monaghan began teaching 3rd grade at Markham Elementary in Hayward, now known as the campus for Faith Ringgold School of Arts and Science, in 1956 and taught there for 25 years. And whereas after Markham Elementary School, Ms. Monaghan moved to Winton Middle School to run the language and math lab for 2 years. And whereas during this time, she earned a master's degree from California State University Hayward, now California State University East Bay. And whereas Ms. Monaghan became the vice principal of Lauren Eden Elementary for 2 years and later served as the principal for Treeview Elementary and East Avenue Elementary. And whereas after a teaching career spanning 39 years, Ms. Monaghan retired in 1995. Now, therefore, I, Mark Salinas, Mayor of the City of Hayward, do hereby commend Ms. Meady Monaghan for her years of service and education and her passion, success, and dedication to teaching students in the City of Hayward. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give Ms. Monaghan a big happy birthday applause. Before I ask Mr. Monaghan to key up, I'd like to ask the president of the school board, Peter Buffette, if he has a word or two, and then I'll ask the superintendent to make a comment. But Mr. Buffette.
Thank you, Mayor. Ms. Monaghan, I just wanted to, on behalf of the Hayward Unified School District and our Board of Education, congratulate you on this birthday, and just thank you so much for being a trailblazer in our community. You know, and being the first and making sure you're not the last is always so important in communities that want to see progress. And you embody that change, and a time where you know, Hayward Unified made the right decision to go that way. So just again, thank you so much for all that you've done. And this month we recognize all teachers, and every year for that, you'll always be recognized because of all the impact that you've made in our community on students and kids. Thank you so much.
Madam Superintendent.
Thank you, Mayor Salinas. Just wanted to echo sentiment of the board president. We could not miss an opportunity to celebrate you or your birthday. And so thank you for having us here today. Educators are special people, and I want to applaud you for all that you've done for our kids and all the commitments that you've shown to Hayward Unified. So with deep gratitude, happy birthday.
Thank you. And then Mr. Monaghan or Miss Monaghan, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Happy birthday.
Thank you so much. And I just want to thank the mayor, the city council, and everyone who got together and made this an incredible birthday for me, as well as an incredible honor. I had my 89th birthday on Mother's Day, and I have to tell you, I've never had such a beautiful birthday. Thank you for making me feel so special. Thank you.
Absolutely. Absolutely, and we have we'll have to get your address offline, but we have a beautiful accommodation for you. And I don't know if the camera can zoom up to Council Member Andrews here, and there you go. If you're watching Channel 15, you can see the accommodation. We'll figure out a way to get this over to you, Ms. Monaghan, and you can enjoy it at home.
Thank you.
All righty. Well,
thank you very much, Mayor Salinas.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you, and enjoy your evening, and we'll talk soon.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Andrews, and thank you, Councilmember Bonilla, for assisting on that. Did you have I saw your name. I wasn't sure if you had a question. No? Okay. All right. I apologize. Okay, so we move on to public comments. This is reserved from anybody in the audience that would like to make a public comment on something that is not on the agenda. Do we have anybody online? Let me see. It looks like we have one hand up. And TJ from Hayward Concerned Citizens, you can go ahead and key up.
Hi, good evening, Council. I'm TJ with HCC. And I just wanted to add to the appreciations expressed to Hayward PD for their many accomplishments tonight. So I thought I'd share some highlights from social media just this year so far. Canine Blaze finds missing 6-year-old with special needs in the wooded area near Hayward Plunge with help of their drone and in collaboration with HARD, Fire, and East Bay Regional Parks. HPD collaborates with CHP and the community to apprehend 2 suspects who fired shots into a moving vehicle. Their latest DUI checkpoint in March, 3 arrested for DUI and 44 people cited for license violations. Arrest of a kidnapping and domestic violence suspect using their license plate reader technology. Multiple vehicle collision and homicide investigations, plus an arrest finally made in 2019 for the 2019 homicide of John Creech Jr., Justice for JJ. Tow operations resulting in nearly 150 vehicles reported by our community as abandoned or illegally parked being removed off of our Hayward roadways. Multiple incidents of arrests for gun possession during routine traffic stops. Follow up on several missing persons reports. Recovery of at least 1 stolen vehicle with illegal narcotics inside. And most recently, and I love this one on Nextdoor, tickets issued by 3 motorcycle cops to people running stop signs at Roos Road in Folsom. Thank you, Beat Cops, Animal Services, Youth and Family Services, Investigative Division, command staff, community liaisons, and everyone in between for the many ways you support our community every day. Our Hayward Concerned Citizens appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And then we don't have anybody in the audience that would like to make a public comment. Seeing none, I'd like to close public comment and move on to city manager's comments or report.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Just one announcement. Just want to remind everyone that this Saturday, May 20th, the city will be hosting the Spring Compost Giveaway. And once again, in the parking lot of the closed SkyWest Golf Course, it'll start at 7:30 a.m. on Saturday, May 20th until supplies run out. We are ready to load 5,000 bags of compost into cars of Hayward residents. This is part of 2 similar events this calendar year. The second event will be in the fall. If you want to be alerted to any of our environmental news, including future compost giveaways, please be sure to sign up for the Leaflet newsletter. Leaflet subscribers will be entitled to an extra 2 bags of compost, but you have to be a subscriber by the end of the day, Wednesday. Go to your environment section of the city's website and look for the leaflet to sign up for your extra 2 bags of compost. So thank you, Mayor. That's the only announcement I have.
So how many bags can one person get?
4.
4 with the possibility of
2
getting
extra.
6.
Yes.
Wow. All I got to say
we
is
have currently 5,000 bags ready to be distributed, and usually it's sold out within a couple hours. Not sold out, but they're gone within a couple hours.
Well, I just have to warn everybody, the moment you bring compost home, that means you have to actually garden. You have to do something. You got to plant something. So, and I hear it's going to be a nice weekend this weekend too. So, okay. All righty. Thank you, Madam City Manager. I will close City Manager comments, move over to our consent calendar, and ask if there is any questions. If not, move on to a motion and a second.
One comment.
Councilmember Cermeño, and I think the button is working if you haven't hit the button, but go ahead.
Just one comment on item number 6. In my item number 6, it states, optional task to conduct a tree canopy of all trees in the city limits. can we take the optional out and make it a doable tree canopy study of all trees in the city limits, as opposed to an optional?
I see Director of Development Services Bowser shaking her head yes on the Zoom screen over here, so I would take that as a yes.
All right, well,
Yes,
good. Thank
we
you
can
very
add
much.
that as a task to the
Excellent.
contract.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Welcome. Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Andrews.
I wanted to comment on number 11 and ask questions about number 7.
Go ahead.
Wanted to thank everyone involved in extending and amending the agreement with Advocates for Human Potential, Inc. for the Behavioral Justice Intervention Service Project. And I hope we can continue to find partnerships like this to expand the HEART program, and working with our public safety to make sure that we are supporting our current departments and making sure we have these types of responses. So I wanted to thank everyone involved in drafting this report as well as obtaining it. And the HEART is the Hayward Evaluation and Response Team Program. So thank you so much. That's all for that one. And then for number 7, I wanted to ask about the Hayward Promise Neighborhood 5-year contract, accept and appropriate up to $1.7 million in funding from downtown Hayward Promise Neighborhood, and just wanted to know, is that part of the Education City concept that we're discussing?
It is definitely related, and I see our library director is online, but this is to help, for those who are not aware of our Hayward Promise Neighborhood Initiative, this is the 3rd round of 5 years of funding that the city, in partnership with Cal State East Bay, Chabot, Hayward Promise, HUSD, First Five, the Las Promotoras, there's a whole host of community partners. I'm sure I'm missing one of them. But we have been a part of that initiative from the beginning. So this is now, the third 5-year grant of the total, I believe, is $25 million for the community over that 5-year period. And we get a small portion. And I'll let our library director talk about what services we provide with those funds.
Excuse me. Thank you, City Manager McAdoo. Thank you, Councilmember Andrews, for the question. Yes, we have been getting this for now, for several years. This is the 3rd round. It's actually $30 million for 5 years this round, and the part that comes to the library pretty much it does support education and different services. The rest of the grant is used in different ways by the different agencies, but what the library gets really does support our education initiatives, including the bookmobiles. So this is sort of just continuing ways to get both technology and education out to the community.
Thank you. And I just have one more question. It says the quote, cradle to career, which I've heard before. How does that work with daycare centers, or does it work with daycare centers?
So that's where the partnership with First Five comes in, okay, where there's specific and more targeted outreach done by that organization to young families in the targeted neighborhood. Okay. Again, I mean, that's part of the partnership with the Promotoras as well. They go out and do prenatal visits to expectant mothers in the neighborhood. There's a whole host of, so it's basically starting from, when children are in the womb and all the way through college, like how the importance of prenatal care, how that impacts your child's ability to learn and develop. So it's a whole, that's where the continuum of cradle to career comes from. And we've got partners all along the way.
Got it. Thank you.
That was pretty good, Madam City Manager. Okay. Our next, let's see, I think I saw, Councilmember Syra.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to comment or ask some questions on 6, 15, and 16. For 6, I want to second Councilmember Zermeño's request to make the canopy study mandatory versus optional. I'm with you there. I just wanted to clarify, they called it a canopy study. Is this different than a canopy inventory, or would this be 2 birds with 1 stone?
Go ahead, Sarah.
Kelly, would you like? Okay, yeah. So no, I mean, what they're going to do is do an analysis of what the tree canopy looks like in the city. It won't be a tree by tree inventory necessarily, but we'll be able to get a sense of what the canopy is throughout the city, and it has direct tie-ins with some layers to our GIS, which would be the end result. So we would be able to review that information. So when we do get requests for either tree removals or when we have requests to do tree planting, we'd be able to utilize that data so that we're placing additional trees in areas that maybe are deficient based on the results of that canopy study. Our intent was certainly to include that and to take them up on that optional task. So again, we do plan to do that, and it will be part of the analysis as a part of that update to the tree preservation ordinance.
Thank you. And I believe a few of our commissions have also advocated for a canopy inventory later down the line, so I'd also be in support of that, but I understand that's separate from this topic. We received a written public comment earlier today from someone that was interested in hearing about options for citizen stewardship, and I was just curious if you felt like this ordinance would be a place where something like that could be written in.
I think that gets tricky, but I think it's certainly something that we can explore as we embark on the update with the consultant. I think it could certainly be considered, but I think there's a lot of challenges, but we're certainly open to any partnerships that we can in order to sort of achieve the goals that we have at the city.
Thank you. I would be interested in seeing what options we have for that, and if there's any way it can reduce costs on staff to help maintain the trees that we do end up studying and writing an ordinance for. And then lastly, this is more just a comment for the public, but in the consultant's report, they will be bringing an initial report to the airport committee. And so I know there were some concerns about how this might affect the SkyWest Golf Course, and I just want to let the public know there will be opportunity to comment on an early draft at the airport committee. So I hope that allays some concerns. And then for items 15, I just want to say I'm looking forward to being Hayward's mosquito czar. I appreciate the opportunity to serve in this position. When I was growing up in Hayward, there were a lot of pools of water that had mosquitoes growing in them, and my dad was really adamant about calling the city and trying to figure out if there were mosquitoes growing in them. So this feels kind of like a full circle moment, and I'm, I don't think a lot of people get excited about mosquito abatement, but I'm actually really looking forward to filling this position. And then lastly, item 16, I just wanted to thank staff for the work that went into securing funds. I see this as some really beautiful alchemy where we took a crisis and are converting it into clean energy projects for the city. So just thank you for your work in this regard, and I'm looking forward to seeing what we do with those funds. Thank you, Mayor.
I knew I picked the right person for the mosquito abatement. Councilmember Bonilla.
Thank you. Councilmember Syrup took some of my comments, but for number 6, I agree for the canopy study. Number 7, I agree with Councilmember Andrews. I think that, this is a great partnership, and I'm just excited to continue to see this advance as powerfully as what it is and how it really does align with helping bring our education city into fruition. That also kind of goes with number 14. My comment there is, it's great to see the library being able to secure these funds so that we can continue to expand and support our library services and programs. And then I also was going to just congratulate Councilmember Syrup for his appointment to the Mosquito Abatement District on number 15, but we've already heard how excited he is there, so I don't know if any more congratulations is needed, but it's clear that you're going to do well there, so thank you for stepping into that. Those are the only comments I wanted to share related to the consent calendar, and when you're ready, I'm ready to move.
Thank you. Before we get there, Councilmember Roach.
Thank you. Just following up one more question on the tree ordinance. Will the consultant meet with any of the local groups to ask them or get input on the ordinance update?
Yes, there is an outreach component as a part of it, and so the intent would certainly be to do outreach with the community. Whether the consultant takes the lead on that or staff takes the lead on that, there will be outreach as a part of that update.
Okay, great, because as you can imagine, a lot of people are watching this. The other question I had was, how did we pick the consultant?
We did an RFP and solicited responses, and Dudek was a responsive candidate, and we did the review of their proposal, and it sort of met the objectives that we had for the update of the ordinance itself.
All right, thank you for that, because I assumed that happened before I got here, so just wanted a little background on that. Thank you, that's all.
Thank you. And just before we vote, I just wanted to comment on the Hayward Promise neighborhood. This is the third round of funding that the Hayward Promise neighborhood is receiving through the U.S. Department of Education. There are 15 partners from Cradle to Career that Cal State East Bay, who is the backbone agency, works with, that has really calibrated into 3 specific neighborhoods in Hayward. The first neighborhood was the Jackson Triangle. The second neighborhood was the South Hayward Corridor, Gadding Road between Tennyson and Harder. And they just got reauthorized for a third neighborhood, which is the downtown neighborhood, which is from Harder up to downtown, A, B, C, D streets up to 6th Street, all of Cherryland up B to Meekland. And this third neighborhood, it's bigger, includes more schools, but one of the caveats to this third neighborhood is that unlike the other census tracts that they were in, this neighborhood has more small children, 0 to 10, than any other neighborhood in the city of Hayward. And so, which is pretty incredible. In total, once this third grant is fully realized, it would be, cumulatively, it would be a little over an $82.5 million investment in the city of Hayward in 3 specific neighborhoods, in the lowest income neighborhoods in the city of Hayward, that has focused on low-income children of color, families of color, renters, virtually every slice of the population that we have been focused on and concentrated on in the last, ever since I've been here. And so this, the library has played a central role in the work, and so the Hayward Promise neighborhood, and the reason why I know so much about the Hayward Promise neighborhood, as some of you may know, I worked for the Hayward Promise neighborhood, but I no longer work with them, and so I will be voting for this tonight. So anyways, we have, it was moved by Councilmember Bonilla, seconded by Councilmember Zermeño, and if there are no other questions, Madam City Clerk, if you can take the roll.
Yes, Mayor, and just for the record, no public comment for the items.
And there are no public comment. Okay. Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Andrews. Aye. Councilmember Bonilla Jr.
Aye.
Councilmember Goldstein.
Aye.
Councilmember Roach.
Aye.
Councilmember Syrup.
I'm going to abstain.
Thank you. I'm sorry, was that?
Abstain.
Abstain. And this is the consent calendar, correct?
That is correct. One of the items involves an appointment that provides a stipend for the role, and I just don't know if it's appropriate for me to vote on my own appointment.
We could separate that item.
Yeah, why don't we pull that out so he can vote on the rest of the consent calendar?
Thank you. Sorry for the mix-up.
Yeah.
I realized it as it was going on.
Yeah, good eye. So we will pull item number, what was that one?
15.
Pull item number 15, and Councilmember Bonilla moved by, and Councilmember Zermeño seconded on items 1 through 14, and then item 16. And then Madam City Clerk, if you can take the roll again.
Yes, ma'am, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. So Councilmember Andrews. Aye. Councilmember Bonilla Jr.
Aye.
Councilmember Goldstein.
Aye.
Councilmember Roach.
Aye.
Councilmember Syrup.
Yes.
Councilmember Zermeño. Mayor Salinas.
Yes. So what I'd like to do is, since I appointed the councilman to the Mosquito Abatement Board, I will move the item, and Mayor Pro Tem Andrews will second the item, and we have moved, seconded. Madam City Clerk, can we take the roll now?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
please.
All right.
Yes, thank you. All right, Councilmember Andrews.
Keep us safe from those mosquitoes. Okay. All right.
Thank
Aye.
you. Councilmember Vernia Jr.
Aye.
Councilmember Goldstein.
Yes, if we
Coun-
can nickname him Buzz.
All right, Councilmember Roach.
Yes.
Councilmember Cermeño.
Sí.
Mayor Salinas.
Yes.
Thank you.
And it unanimously passes. So, yes, yes. Okay, now we proceed to the work session. And our first item is item number 17, which is the fiscal year 2024 city budget, proposed fiscal year 2024 operating budget work session number 2. And we will have, I believe the city manager will kick this off, and then our finance director. And then I believe this is going to be a rather short,
Actually,
short report.
our assistant city manager, Regina Youngblood, will
Oh.
make a few comments.
Oh, okay, perfect. Ms. Youngblood, I apologize. Go right ahead.
No worries. Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and council members. As the mayor has indicated, this should be a pretty short item. The proposed fiscal year 2024 budget work session was conducted this past Saturday. And generally, we have an additional work session planned for the following council meeting to cover any departmental budgets that were not able to be completed in that initial work session. And while the discussion was rich and spirited and everyone was engaged, we were able to get through all of the city's budget departmental presentations on Saturday. And so there are no follow-up discussions or presentations that are needed at this particular time. We will be continuing the process of budgeting with your next item from Director Alex Amiri in the capital improvement budget. And Director Gonzalez will be back in 2 weeks to do the budget 2024 budget hearing and hopefully adoption. I just want to say thank you to Director Gonzalez in her first time conducting the budget workshop as the director, and she was great at it, and her team for pulling everything together, again, for a very successful budget workshop that we had this past Saturday.
Okay, so I will end the report and ask council if they have any questions. Or actually, before I do that, open up for public comment. Is there any comment online or in the audience? I don't see anybody in the audience, and I don't see anybody online. So I'd like to close public comments and bring it back up here to council if they have any questions or comments about the budget. Seeing none. Oh, yes, of course, right there. Councilmember Syrup.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Assistant City Manager Youngblood, for the brief presentation. Thank you, Director Gonzalez, for preparing this budget for us. I was just curious about process, just to help illuminate it for the public. We gave our comments on Saturday. How much can we expect the budget to be shaped by some of the comments that we gave on Saturday? And is that going to be presented during the public hearing, or will there be an opportunity for us to discuss it before then?
Yes, your comments and suggestions were incorporated from what we could see during the budget workshop on Saturday. We got the consensus that you were in agreement with what was being proposed. We don't expect there to be any major changes to the budget based on that. There may be some changes as it relates to roadmap items that may be added by council that need some additional funding. That information will be provided for you and to you in a staff report on the strategic roadmap. But during the next budget hearing is when you have an opportunity to ask additional questions and to see what may have changed from the last session.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And yeah, I just wanted, before I close this item, I just wanted to acknowledge Director Gonzalez. This was her first budget book, and it was, and I mean, at least for me, I've seen several budget books as of today, and it was well organized, it was presented well, and I think in large part, the success we had on Saturday really boils down to the work that Director Gonzalez has done to really make this process easy and really enabled us to process a lot of information in a very short period of time. So, Madam City Mayor, if you can please tell Director Gonzalez thank you, and I'm sure everybody here up on the dais appreciates her service. So tell her thank you for us. Okay. So I will close this item, and I will move on to item number 18. And of course, this is a work session. This is non-action item. And we have Director Amiri here, who will be presenting the Capital Improvement Program work session, review of recommended capital improvement program for fiscal year 2024 through 2033. And this is, the report will be given to us by Director Alex Amiri. Sir.
Thank you and good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. And thank you for this opportunity to present the 10-year FY24 through FY33 CIP to council this evening during this work session and receive your feedback and comments. This process started last fall and has progressed to this evening. All city departments have contributed projects to the CIP. The CIP has been already presented to Planning Commission for making the finding of consistency with the general plan, which they did. It was also presented to and discussed before the CIC last month and received CIC's endorsement. I would like to acknowledge the great work of Ellie Lowe, Senior Management Analyst, and Management Analyst Trang Nguyen and Sharon Hu, as well as the work of Kate Byrne, who had made significant contributions to this effort and presented the CIP to the Planning Commission and the Council Infrastructure Committee before she moved on last month. With that, I turn this over to Sharon Hu to begin the presentation. Sharon?
Yes, hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Sharon Hu. I'm a management analyst with the Public Works and Utilities Department. At this time, I will provide an overview of the recommended capital improvement program for fiscal years 2024 through 2033. This is the third year that the CIP has been developed in the online OpenGov Stories format. OpenGov Stories is a budget book development tool designed to increase the user-friendliness and ease of navigation within complex budgets. It's also intended to help increase the depth with which community members, council members, and other stakeholders can explore a budget. The online CIP can be found at hayward-ca.gov/CIP. I will now open up the budget book to provide, the online book, to provide a quick tutorial on how to navigate it. One moment while I share screens. Okay. So if you scroll to the middle of the page, you'll see this blue bar, Proposed FY 2024 through 2033 Capital Improvement Program. This button will take you to the online version of the CIP. This is the recommended viewing experience for the CIP because it includes a number of interactive tables and charts. If you would like to view a printable PDF version, you can click just below the blue bar here to view the entire CIP document as a PDF. Now I'll be turning back to the online version of the CIP on the OpenGov platform by clicking on the blue bar. And here we are at the home page. If you scroll down, you'll see there are four main sections of the CIP. The introduction section includes more information about the city's elected officials and organizational chart. The strategic priority section includes an overview of the city's strategic priorities and some featured projects that support these priorities. The Explore the Budget section is the meat of the CIP, where you'll get key budget insights, such as the proposed budget amount and information on various projects within the CIP. The last section is the table of contents page, which I'll review at the end. First, we'll go into the Explore the Budget section. On this page, you'll see the total recommended fiscal year 24 budget is $115 million. The total 10-year budget is $905 million. Below are other key insights such as the total fiscal year 24 general fund transfers to CIP funds, which amount to approximately $2.4 million. The total FY24 internal service fees are approximately $5.3 million, and the total identified and unfunded capital needs portion is approximately $511 million. If you want to see more details on the projects that comprise these three amounts, you can go to these links on the right that say click here to learn more. Then you can choose to view details of the recommended CIP budget by fund or by category. I'll start by clicking on the by fund link. Here you'll see an overview of the city's fund portfolio. If you click on the carets in the table below, you can drill down to see total recommended budget amounts for specific funds. If you keep scrolling down the page, you'll see a description of each fund, and each of these links will take you to a separate page where you'll be able to drill down even further to see various projects within each fund. For instance, if I click on Fund 405 for a capital project, I'll be taken to a separate page dedicated to Fund 405 projects. I can drill down within this fund and see individual project budgets. And beneath this table, there's a short list of featured projects, which each have their own project page. So for example, if I click on the Vista Park, I'll see an image, a conceptual rendering, a description of the project, along with an overview of the revenue sources that contributed to the project and the expense budget for the project in the table. So now I'll go back up to the Explore the Budget section using the browser back arrow. And this time I'm going to take another view of the budget details and drill down by category. So once again, you'll see the pie chart broken down by categories. And just like the page that was broken down by fund, the table that populates this pie chart below allows you to drill down and see the project along with their total budget, organized by category. And if I scroll down, I'll see links to individual category pages. So if I click on livable neighborhoods, for example, I'll be taken to a separate page with a description of the category and project expense budgets in the livable neighborhoods category. So similar to viewing by fund, I'll be able to see project and budget. And at the bottom of this page, there are links to all of the featured projects within this category. Now, if I want to go back to explore the budget, I can click on the back button again. And I want to point out two helpful resources. So first, the appendices. If you're looking for a specific project budget but aren't sure how to find this project, you can start with Appendix A for all project budgets by category. The Appendix A page will show an expanded view of every project and its budget. You can search for a keyword using Control or Command F. So for example, if I want to search for fire station right now, I can click Control F, fire station. And the three projects that have fire station in the title will be highlighted, and I can look at their budgets here. Now, if you're looking for a specific project description and aren't sure where to start, the best resource is Appendix B. So I can go back to the Explore the Budget page, click on Appendix B, and this link will take me to a page with an expanded table with all of the projects and their descriptions. And on this page, the search functionality is actually built within the table. So if I want to search again for fire station, I can click on this caret next to project title, type in fire station, click OK. And this will show me the subset of projects that have fire station in the title, along with their project numbers and their project descriptions. And the easiest way to reset your search here is to refresh your browser page. Last but not least, I want to point out that there is a table of contents section. So if you're ever lost or want to start over, the bottom of every page should have a link to the table of contents page. If you open the table of contents, you'll see links to every single page of the CIP. And this is the best way to get to a particular section of the CIP quickly. The three main sections are featured front and center: Introduction, Strategic Priorities, and Explore the Budget. And the three main subsections of the CIP that allow you to view project budgets and descriptions are also linked here below. You can go directly to pages dedicated to each fund, category, or the appendices. This concludes the quick tour of the online budget book. I will now return to the core presentation. One moment while I switch my screen. Okay. As I mentioned earlier, the proposed CIP includes a total recommended budget of approximately $115 million for fiscal year 2024. The total 10-year budget for the entire planning period from fiscal year 24 through 2033 is approximately $905 million. The document also includes a proposed general fund transfer of approximately $2.3 million in fiscal year 24. This is a $1.7 million reduction from the fiscal year 2023 transfer. The proposed CIP also includes proposed internal service fees, which are fees that are collected when one city department provides a service to another, drawing down those service expenses from the operating budget of the benefiting department. The CIP includes a recommended ISF of approximately $5.3 million, which is about $500,000 higher than last year. This slide provides a snapshot of the recommended CIP broken down by category. As you can see here, the largest portion of the recommended FY24 budget has been programmed into the orange and gray, the sewer and water system categories. These categories encompass a wide range of projects which support the ongoing replacement and improvement of our utility infrastructure, such as our annual water and sewer line replacements and our Phase 2 improvement project at the Water Pollution Control Facility. The third largest category is the livable neighborhoods category in blue, which includes parks like La Vista Park and Lanier Park, buildings like the Stack Center, median landscaping projects like those in the Tennyson and Jackson corridors, traffic calming projects, pedestrian and bicycle improvements, and sidewalk projects, among others. The livable neighborhoods category, the third largest category in the recommended CIP, includes beautification, safety, and neighborhood amenity and improvement projects like the Stack Center and La Vista Park. The call for bids for the Stack Center Phase 1 will go to council on June 20, and the construction contract is anticipated to be awarded in September. There's currently a funding gap of $27 million, and staff is actively seeking funding from federal and state sources, partner agencies, and private donations. La Vista Park is another example in this category. The design has been finalized and bids for construction are due May 23rd. This category also includes bike and pedestrian improvements and traffic calming projects. One example is the Campus Drive Improvements Project, through which a series of traffic calming measures and the addition of separated bike lanes are being implemented in the stretch of Campus Drive between 2nd Street and Hayward Boulevard. Patrick and Gating Complete Streets project is another example which includes the installation of buffered bike lanes on Patrick Avenue. Staff is looking into the feasibility of extending them into Gating Road. The city's first Safe Routes for Seniors effort is currently underway in 4 downtown Hayward intersections, and improvements include increased pedestrian crossing times, installation of high visibility ADA ramps, repositioning of crosswalks, and pedestrian push buttons to align with ADA improvements, widening medians for pedestrian refuge, and more. The city's first Safe Routes to Schools project is planned to begin construction this summer near Cesar Chavez Middle School and will include installation of curb and median extensions, advanced stop and yield marking, yellow high visibility sidewalks, rectangular rapid flashing beacons, and more. Projects in the roads and streets category range from curb and gutter repair to major gateway corridor improvements. This includes the last phase of the Mission Boulevard Corridor Improvement Project, Phase 3. This project was awarded on April 24, and construction is scheduled to start this summer. Main Street Complete Street is another major project in this category. This project will improve pedestrian and bicycle facilities along Main Street to create a safe and friendly environment for multimodal travel in downtown Hayward. Pavement rehabilitation is a related category that comprises all of our annual pavement rehab projects. This is the fourth largest category in the CIP, with approximately $16.5 million in recommended programming in FY24. The FY23 pavement rehab project design includes 12 miles of bike lanes and is currently scheduled to start construction in early June. The municipal facilities improvement category includes projects which improve existing buildings and construction of new buildings. Some major projects in this category include Fire Station number 6 and Training Center, which is currently estimated to be completed by this summer, the Corporation Yard Needs Assessment Project, and the Hayward Police Department Locker Room Design and Construction Project. For the public's knowledge, the courtyard is home to several city divisions and facilities, including the Utility Center, and is in need of significant repairs and upgrades, which were estimated to amount to more than $50 million in the past. This project will support putting together an updated cost estimate for the required improvements. The sewer system category is the largest of the categories in the CIP and includes projects which are enterprise fund supported and related to the improvement of our water system, water reuse efforts, and water pollution control facility. Some major projects in this category include the FY24 sewer line replacement project, the WPCF Phase 2 improvement project, and a Phase 2 recycled water project. The city officially began delivering recycled water to approximately 30 Phase 1 customers last year and will begin developing a Phase 2 facilities plan in FY24 to prepare for expansion of the system. Pictured on the slide is the recycled water sign that has been set up at Rancho Arroyo Park, which is one of our Phase 1 customers. Water system projects are also enterprise fund supported and are related to the improvement of our water system, as well as projects which promote water conservation. Some major projects include the cast iron water pipeline replacement program, as well as the annual water line replacement project, through which we aim to replace at least 2 miles of pipeline every year. The fleet management category is comprised of projects involving the replacement of fleet units in various departments, divisions, and work groups, as well as any other projects related to city vehicles. Fleet purchases benefiting the fire and police departments are predominantly funded by transfers from the general fund, while those benefiting the airport, stormwater, sewer, and water divisions are predominantly supported by enterprise funding. 2 additional projects in this category include the citywide EV charging strategy upgrade and publicly accessible fast charger project, both of which will be contingent upon receiving funds through a federal infrastructure bill, which staff intend to apply for. The airport category is comprised of all projects within Airport Capital Fund 621, which support improvements to the Hayward Executive Airport. Some key projects include Taxiway Zulu pavement rehabilitation, as well as the Sulphur Creek Safety Enhancement Design and Construction Project, which is anticipated to begin after FY 2025. Finally, the miscellaneous category includes projects which do not neatly fit into the other category, such as the 2040 General Plan Update and the Route 238 Property Project. In addition to including recommended project budgets, the CIP also includes a list of identified and unfunded capital needs. One of the largest unfunded needs continues to be the renovation of the Corporation Yard. Several years ago, this renovation effort was estimated at $50 million. After an updated needs assessment is prepared, staff will have a more up-to-date idea of the cost to implement the necessary improvements. Another significant need, which is included in this list, is the Stack Center. The project is currently estimated to require a total of $58 million, $31 million of which has been funded and is programmed in the CIP. The remaining $27 million remains unfunded, and staff are actively seeking opportunities to close this gap. I would also like to take a brief moment to demonstrate the recommended CIP's alignment with the city's current strategic roadmap. The list of projects featured here in the outer ring is not exhaustive, but does demonstrate a nice snapshot of the priorities which the CIP projects support. For instance, you can see in the yellow that CIP projects tend to directly support the invest in infrastructure priority, though they do touch most of the other priorities. Again, this list is not exhaustive, and it is also important to note that many of the projects support multiple priorities simultaneously, even if they are formally listed under one priority. This concludes the presentation of the recommended CIP. Once again, the entire document can be viewed in detail at hayward-ca.gov/CIP. For the work session format, the next step is to receive public comments, followed by council's questions and discussion. I will now stop sharing my screen. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. As you were talking, you didn't see us on screen, but as you were talking, this website that you have is just incredible. And it's just, I was sidebarring here with Mayor Pro Tem Andrews, and you know, she's our staff engineer here on the dais, and she was very impressed, and I shared that feeling.
Thank you.
Okay, so before we get to council comments, I want to open up to public comment. Is there anybody in the audience that would like to comment on the nearly $1 billion capital improvement plan in the next 10 years? Seeing none, is there anybody online? Seeing none, I'd like to direct it back up here to the dais and ask anybody here if they have any questions. Let me get to my list here, because I am sure Mayor Pro Tem Andrews has her hand up, and she was beat this evening by Council Member Zermeño.
Thank you. I was also impressed. Please, our thanks, or my thanks to Ellie Liu for an excellent presentation. It was very clear, concise, explanatory, and a wonderful tour. I actually learned quite a bit. And one of the things I learned that Vista Street is part of the project. Is that the Vista? I'm sorry. Is that
La Vista Park?
Silva Street. I'm sorry, Silva. Is that the Silva Street that joins Jackson that has caused quite a few problems?
Correct.
Okay, so it is part, and that's what I saw with Ellie's presentation.
Right.
Thank you for that, because I'm sure my colleagues also receive quite a few complaints about Silva Street in Jackson.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Thank you for highlighting La Vista Park. That's excellent. 4 quick questions. So 155 million next year, 115. Will we have 900 million in 10 years? Or are we going to piecemeal it year by year?
We will have more than $900 million in the next 10 years.
I like that.
900 million is what we can foresee. If you consider that 10 years ago, we didn't know about La Vista Park, we didn't know about the Stack Center, so those costs were not included in the 10-year CIP. Right now, the 900 million is what we can foresee, and hopefully, they'll be added to it over time.
Okay, good, because we like to see some of these projects, especially the La Vista and Stack. And let's see, another question is fleet replacement with electric vehicles. We note 15%. Any way we can nudge it up to 20%?
You want to take it? I can take it.
Go ahead.
Yes, we are working very, very closely with Director Ruhlman to make sure that we have the infrastructure to support, and as we develop the infrastructure and as these vehicles become more cost effective, we go ahead and purchase them. And his goal and the goal of the city, your goal, is to expand the percentage as much as we can with the resources that we have right now.
I will just also highlight, I think earlier, a few months ago, there was an item about acquiring police vehicles. And we have been trying to acquire, we had placed an order, as I understand it, from our maintenance services director for a number of replacement police vehicles and some that were electric, and we can't even get them. So we had placed an order for like 60 replacement vehicles, and we got 20 of the 60 that we ordered. So I think that's also the challenge, is we're competing against every other agency who's also trying to electrify their fleet. So while we may have ambitious goals, supply chain issues may prevent us from getting there.
Okay. I also noticed that the one of the items was 1,000 trees. If you remember, last Saturday I negotiated with my colleagues, and we came up to 2,500 trees. So that needs to change. All right.
Absolutely.
Correct, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. And then electric vehicles. Any possibility that we can explore electric motorcycles for our police officers?
I believe that they have a couple of them. They purchased them a few years ago. They are testing them. They are.
Oh, fantastic.
Yes.
Very good. And my last question, I don't know what alternate modes is, and that's going to be $41 million. Alternate modes is one of the items listed. At the very last slide, listed alternate modes, M-O-D-E-S.
Yes,
Yeah.
I will look that up.
All right.
And I just want to clarify, I believe the number was 1,500 trees, not 2,500 trees.
I thought it was 2,500. Remember, I started high, and,
yes.
And they started low.
We will clarify. We'll go back and figure out which number we landed on, and we'll update the CIP. But I don't believe it was 2,500 trees.
We don't want to cheat the canopy.
Yes, we would all love to plant trees. We just have, we don't want them to die either, because we don't have people to take care of them when they get planted. So, yes.
Thank you. Very good report. And let's start building some of these items. Thank you, Alex. Thank you. And thanks, Ellie Lou, for an excellent presentation.
Will do.
Mayor Pro Tem Andrews.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you to all the staff who worked on the CIP document. I know exactly how hard this job is to do that document, so good job. Wanted to ask about the Stack Center. I'm a little overwhelmed by the $27 million gap, and wanted to see what are the exact things we're working on in terms of trying to attack that gap. And I know that we're looking at funding from the state, federal, all that, but wanted to see if we looked at examples that are local of how they were able to do a joint partnership or joint venture with other agencies. So the example I'm thinking of is Emeryville Center of Community Life, and it's a complex in Emeryville where it's a school and community services. It's about 160,000 square feet, $96 million. How did they pay for that? Is that something that we can look into?
We can definitely look into that. I think we have a lot of things in the works, and we're also rephasing that's for the total build out, is my understanding. So
Yes.
so yeah, we are looking at a lot of different options in terms of filling that gap for that 27 million. And we do have a number of other partners that are with us in this center. So Tiburcio Vasquez, Eden Youth and Family Center, La Familia. So we are working with all of our partners diligently to figure out how we get across the finish line.
Okay,
and we'll look at the Emeryville project.
Yeah,
It's a good example.
It could be an example to look at. And then I really like how you have the projects next to the strategic roadmap priorities. So I thought that was really good. And then also like that the livable projects are coming in third place. So wanted to see, I know sewers obviously and water is very important, but what do we need to do to get livable projects in first place? Like what are some adjustments that we can make? Sewers and water are very important projects, but we get a lot of requests for more of the livable projects, the more quality of life projects. So it will be something that I would like to look at in the future of what we can do.
Absolutely. As you know, sewer and water have their own source of funding.
Right.
So if we don't do soil and water, we cannot spend that money on anything else.
Okay,
So,
good. That's right.
Yeah.
The enterprise.
But we know how important livable neighborhoods are to council, and we pursue them the best that we can. And the CIP that is presented to you tonight, it shows that many of those projects have been included. I know we have, for instance, La Vista Park, a 50-acre park that is going to be under construction soon, or the Stack Center, or other projects that we do, such as the recently completed linear park that is going to be a mile-long park along Mission Boulevard, which is going to bring this park to fairly densely situated neighborhood on both sides of Mission Boulevard that they can enjoy this park.
Okay. And one of the examples I'm thinking of other like quality of life livable projects is something similar to what we're doing on Main Street, but looking at what can we do to make B Street more attractive to attract more businesses. I feel like it does look good, but can it look better? So for example, Powell Street in San Francisco, just recently San Francisco announced that they're putting in money into Powell Street because of the vacancies that are continuing to happen downtown, and just wondering if that was something similar we could look at in the future. Just wanted to see if that was something that could be in the works in the future as part of our CIP.
You're absolutely right. When we did B Street, it was a quarter of a century ago. At that time, it was the state of the art, the sidewalks and what have you. Today, it looks dated, but we are...
I didn't want to say that word, but
yes,
you did.
we
so
are
it's
looking
okay.
for opportunities to have funding and do something there. One of the direction that council has provided and talked about is looking into basically the way that B Street works and how B Street, A Street, C Street can be reconfigured. I'm not going to mention the big project, but we are seeking funding to do something about the way that traffic works in the downtown. I was going to mention to you that one of the opportunities that has come up is a grant that is called Safe Routes for All. We have for seniors, we have to school, but this is for all. And we are going to seek some fundings for the planning phase of looking into all of these streets and intersections to make them more pedestrian friendly.
And can you look at that for Tennyson, Lighted Court, Hesperian, just so it's equitable across the city and not downtown?
Thank you for
as
that
well?
comment. I was going to mention at some point that everything that we do is with the lens of environmental, social, and economic equity. When we have a project and we are thinking about deployment, is it equitable to everyone? In this case, because of the location of the traffic problem here in the downtown, and because the council has indicated to us that that's a priority, that is what we are seeking funding for. And I think that we can have a more convincing application if we say, look, this project has decimated the downtown into different sections, and we need to do something about it.
Okay.
We are not going to, use the word loop here, but improving the safety and functionality of these different streets.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Councilmember Roach.
Thank you. Yeah, and thank you everyone for your comments. I think maybe we'll all just build on each other, so I won't mention some of the things that everyone else has brought up. But the website's awesome. And my only question about the website is there, I think we've talked about this before, like a dashboard. So like on that page, I would love to see just one more tab basically that says current projects, so that they don't have to go down to Appendix B to get a list of projects. Because when the community is asking us what's going on, I don't know, Mission and Hancock, so that there's a direct route for that for the public, because we may know to look or want to look further, but and I know we've talked about this, like some sort of dashboard for the public, so that would be great.
We can definitely do that.
Okay, thank you.
I just want to add that there are several members of our staff from engineering, transportation, utilities, and environmental services that are online. They'll be happy to answer your questions. They are taking notes, and we will definitely implement your comments.
Thank you. Yeah, and because you're right, you can go to the table of contents, but it's not intuitive if you're just looking for current projects.
Understood.
Thank
Yes,
you.
Thank you.
Great. Then I also wanted to ask, so anything to do with developing the Skywest property, doesn't look like that's not even on future unfunded projects at this point. Is that right?
No, it is not unfunded, but we can bring that project separately before you. That's an airport.
And I would just say it's not a city capital project necessarily, because we'll be waiting for a private development proposal. So it wouldn't probably, unless there's some element like a public park or some other public improvement as part of that larger master plan. So I wouldn't see it as being part of the CIP document necessarily, maybe a sub-portion of that development.
All right, thank you. And then on recycled water, there's the phase 2, looking at what the customer demand is going to be. And are you, in that phase 2, are you going to be a little more purposeful about going out to the large water users, the large golf courses and parks and schools, and how, or is it just geographic and how you can physically get the lines out? Like what's going to be incorporated in phase 2?
Actually, we are going to be more strategic about where the customers are for using that water. And as I mentioned last time, I think we developed this project like any other agency for using this water for irrigation. So for irrigation, tertiary treatment, we currently do secondary treatment at the wastewater treatment plant. Our recycled water is tertiary, the third level of treatment. As soon as the project was commissioned, industries came out and asked for this water for industrial use, which is wonderful because then it is not only the summertime usage, but it is more year-round. But that water will have to be treated at a higher level. So it has to have like reverse osmosis or more purification. It's purified water. So we are thinking about that too in our implementation of the second phase.
I see. So there'll be infrastructure needed in order to move into the more purposeful list. Okay, thank you. And then I also wanted to ask, do we do water trucks for irrigation around the city, and do they use the recycled water for that?
Where we have the opportunity to do that, yes. Like during the drought, for instance, we did some of that. But if you consider that the trucks that are, let's say, in South Hayward will have to go back all the way to the treatment plant or to where the recycled water is, it becomes inefficient, produces a lot of greenhouse gas emissions before they get down there. But it is a good idea, and we are thinking about it.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I mean, whatever we could do to use more of that water would be great. And speaking of the downtown and the B Street area, I mean, I would like us to look at, and this is my preference, I'm not speaking for the council, but looking at a closure, like a Friday to Sunday evening closures to traffic from Mission Boulevard to from Foothill Boulevard to Mission Boulevard as a way to sort of reinvigorate downtown. But I know that's a future thing. I mean, I saw it somewhere, right? So you're looking at that.
Correct.
Okay. I'll just put my vote in for that one. I also wanted to ask on the safe routes for seniors. I like where the map shows where we're going to look at that for longer crossing times and higher visibility. But there's one other area I would like you to look at, and that is near the plunge, because I actually see seniors that come out of there after swimming running across Mission because they can't quite beat the light, and it's such a dangerous area, such a dangerous crossing. So if we could maybe add that as a look at, during whatever times that is, it seems like early morning swims or late afternoon swims, but I do think that area needs to be looked at.
Absolutely. The next project is going to be in the Tennyson area in South Hayward, but the project after that we can definitely look at near the plunge.
Okay, and then the other area, as far as safe routes to school, you know, the kids that come down near St. Regis and cross over, you know, Jackson, the whole, that sort of interchange, there's one section where they wait in the median, and I see the kids like jostling and moving around, and if they just pushed each other a little harder, because they're all moving around, they're right in oncoming traffic on Mission Boulevard going south. So if we could look at that intersection too, I don't know what needs to happen, a bigger bulb out where they wait or they don't wait in the median, so maybe a longer light for them to cross. But it just looks like an accident waiting to happen.
Right. The next safe routes to school is going to be for Palmacia. But if there is an area that we need to look into, we don't have to wait for safe routes to school. We'll definitely take a look at the location that you mentioned.
Thank you.
And see if there are interim improvements and safety improvements we can do.
Yeah, I really, you know, just get someone to look at it during the school time.
Absolutely.
School time let out.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, thanks. And then, sorry guys, I'm just going down my list here. We already talked about that, so where's the schools? All right, you know what, I'm gonna look through because I think those are my top questions and yeah. Oh, one more question, sorry. On the streets, roads and streets project, I was saying like a lot of it is, or portions of it are funded by a gas tax. And I was just wondering in the future, will we be able to capture some sort of EV charging fee to replace this gas tax? And what's gonna happen when that fee starts to go down in the future?
Obviously, as people are purchasing more electric vehicles, there is going to be this transition from purchasing gas to using electricity. There are some things afoot in order to make sure that the funding source is going to continue and come to the cities for that purpose. Just wanted to share with you, although the sale of electric vehicles are very small right now overall, I heard somewhere that in the Bay Area, in the first few months of this year, up to 30% of all the sales were of electric vehicles, and the highest percentage was 37% in Alameda County. So the move towards electric vehicles is getting momentum right now.
Is happening.
Yes.
You know, speaking of that, so if we, like City Manager Makeda was saying, if we got these 60 vehicles, do we even have the infrastructure to charge that many vehicles in an efficient way to keep everybody out in circulation?
I think it's a combination of hybrid vehicles and purely electric vehicles.
Mm-hmm.
So hybrid vehicles, even when they are plug-in, they don't need high voltage in order to be charged overnight. So that's what we have started with. We have a few pure electric vehicles, but the majority right now are hybrid vehicles.
And I would say, no, I don't believe we have any place from an infrastructure perspective to plug in 60 vehicles at a time and charging. So that's also something we'll need to be thinking about for the future.
Thank you.
Councilmember Bonilla.
Thank you. This CIP is the project that keeps giving to me because I had an opportunity to review it on the Planning Commission for its conformance with the general plan, and again at the Council Economic Committee, and now, or Infrastructure Committee rather, and now here again. So I won't repeat any of the comments I made before, but what I will say is, I do appreciate this online platform and open source, this open source gov story. I appreciate the alignment with the strategic priorities and its conformance to the general plan. I also appreciate kind of the hard work and the continued work of council staff and the community to identify funding sources for this, very large $500 million unfunded, needs within the capital improvement area. There's a lot of important projects, as my colleagues have mentioned, in this area, which include the Stack Center and, the public safety building and other things that are just really important to the community and I think align with council priorities. So kind of just teeing off of what Councilmember Andrews had said, what are, just for the public to understand that, it's not that this $500 million is just sitting out there, but what are we doing, intentionally to try to find funding to fill this gap?
So the sources of funding for these are, a couple of different sources. We are pursuing grants whenever we can, but the hard fact is that some of these projects will have to be funded by just bonds or other sorts of traditional, conventional sources of funding. And we've had some conversations about what does it take, what is going to be the annual repayment, what are the sources of funding that can support that kind of borrowing, and so on.
Excellent. I just wanted to make sure that the public understands that we are actively working to try to identify and address this gap. And to your point around potentially looking at bonds or other more traditional financing methods, I think that's why I was so proud of the work that we did in our budget work session and our commitment to continue to fund our OPEG payments, because that's going to continue to put us in good light when it comes to being able to borrow more long term to be able to deal with some community issues that currently aren't funded. The other thing that I was going to ask, I'm also very pleased to see and to hear what you were saying, Director, about the way that we prioritize this work is really through a lens of equity. And I saw that loud and clear when I was reviewing these projects, because a number of these projects, I would say more proportionately this year than in other years, are in South Hayward and are in areas of our community that really haven't necessarily had the same sort of love that downtown has had. So it's great to see the lens of equity that we're taking through these projects. When it comes to La Vista Park, I know that there's also some, unfunded pieces of that. Outside of, additional grants, what else are we doing to kind of look at filling that $12 million gap we have to finish the park?
We are also having conversations with HARD to see if there is source of funding that can be made available for this. The project is going to the bid process right now as we speak. The bids are expected next week. We have structured the bid so that we can take advantage of whatever the low bid is going to be. Chances are, keeping my fingers crossed, that we can have some portions that we think that are unfunded to be awarded with the base bid. But whatever is left, we will do our utmost discussing it with HARD and so on to see if we can close that gap.
I know there's a lot of people in our community that are eagerly waiting, that park, the groundbreaking and just the opening. So in the report, it says that, construction is planned to commence in late spring or early summer of 2023. It's summer just around the corner. Are we on track for that still?
So we are receiving bids on the 23rd. If the bids are going to be reasonable, we will do our utmost to come to council and ask you to award the project before the council break, which means that the construction can begin within about 30 days after the award of the construction contract.
And I would just also add, there's some ways that we could, if we needed to scale back, at least the initial parts, there's a lot of sort of landscaping and hillscaping that's happening that could be left, until later elements, but get the sort of key public, facility elements of the park done. So I think those are the conversations we will have with HARD as we see what the bids come in at.
Excellent. I think that phasing plan is really wise to, get us moving and get it open as quickly as possible, and then open it in phases, as you were saying, as funding and other resources become available. As it relates to the pavement improvements, I appreciate the work that we're doing also around making our communities more walkable and bikeable. I think we heard at the CIC meeting that I think it's Bike East Bay wants to have more input into sort of what we're doing in that space. So just kind of reminding us to, work with them as we look at these pavement improvement plans and how they intersect with bike lanes and walkability and mobility within the city. And I'm wrapping up here in just a second, but it says, the other question I had is, these are a lot of great projects, but how do we get updates on them? Is there somewhere that the public can go to understand if the projects are started, delayed, are they, on schedule, on budget? I guess, how do we understand the status of some of these?
So the best source is our website. We have dedicated pages to some of these important projects. and we update those pages on a regular basis, fairly regular basis, and that's the best source of information. And then, of course, when we come before the CIC and or the Council Sustainability Committee and present these projects, that's another source. The staff reports are available, and then the presentations as well.
And I would just say that, per our, I think the council, we've had discussions about some sort of dashboard or some other way to get regular updates that are available to the council and members of the public. So we heard you will be working on something like that. But for now, I think what Director Mary had mentioned, the city's website does have a lot of project-specific pages, some of these major projects.
Got it. I'm just wondering, if it's approved, maybe on the, I don't know if we would go back and change it, but, adding a column, start it, delayed, on track, just something within that general grid, since we have all those columns anyways that provide a lot of richness in the information. Just might be a simple way of us kind of centralizing where it is we go for those updates. And then I also, I'm really pleased to see the projects in the CIP. I was going to talk about the undergrounding of utilities and other things, but I think the public can read all of the great work that's in here. And I think the deeper that we get into really understanding these projects, the more we can be proud about the forward progression and how Hayward is really advancing and continuing to move forward and be the heartbeat of the Bay. So thank you for this review and for allowing me to provide these comments.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
I believe on the doors of all the city trucks, it says #moving forward.
That's right.
Councilmember Syrup.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Director Ameri, for putting together this budget, and thank you, Ms. Lowe, for the presentation. I appreciated the thoroughness of it. I was curious, just to continue off of Councilmember Bonilla's statement about undergrounding. There was a lot to read in this packet. Could you just speak to the approach to broadband and whether or not updated internet systems are part of this undergrounding effort?
Well, utility undergrounding, we implement them as part of our projects. For instance, Phase 3 Mission Boulevard, when you drive down from A Street to Rose, you see that there are overhead wires and such. Those are going to be removed and the lines undergrounded as part of the project that the council just awarded. When it comes to broadband, we are going to take another look at what is possible, what is feasible, and hopefully update the study that was done several years ago. Technology has changed, costs have changed, and prepare a report.
And I would just remind the council that the city doesn't install broadband equipment. That's all done through the private sector. So we are happy to facilitate that as part of our projects. And that's one of, Director Mary was referring to our 2017 sort of broadband master plan. And so looking at that, updating that in response to some of the council's direction at the strategic roadmap retreat. But just a reminder, the city doesn't have a broadband utility or install internet.
Understood. And just for clarification, was that broadband master plan originally called High Speed Hayward, and then we didn't like the name and changed it? Okay, just wanted to make sure because that was prior to my time on council. Yeah, if we're going to spend the public works time and funding to cut open the ground and move wiring into it, it might be an incentive to get some partners, private partners, to get involved and actually upgrade our infrastructure. So I just wanted to highlight that.
Councilmember Sayrov, I just wanted to mention, and I mentioned it to city manager earlier, that there is a lot of activities going on in the city by private installers right now. We are issuing encroachment permits left and right. There is Sonic, there is Broadband AG, there is AT&T, and others that are all over the city installing fiber right now.
Okay, that's good to hear. Thank you. I was curious if you could give me a little bit of the budget narrative. So Councilmember Andrews asked the question, livable neighborhoods is now third place in terms of funding this year, and you clarified that sewer and water actually are self-funded or they're enterprise funded. Is that correct?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay, so when I'm looking at this list, it's hard for me to discern it, and I'm just imagining if the public's looking at it too, it must be difficult for them. So just as a point of feedback for future presentations, it might be helpful to break out what's self-funded or enterprise funded, what's asking for funds from the general fund, and maybe what's specific to the strategic roadmap, just so it's easy to understand how they all relate to each other. Because when I was looking at this, I'm seeing a drop in, more than $18 million, if I'm doing the math correctly, for livable neighborhood projects. And I trust your judgment, but I'm wondering what the narrative is there, right? Can you explain to me what that drop is about?
Oh, sure. Sometimes when you have a large project and the project is awarded, the funding is in the year that the project is awarded. When the project goes through construction and it is going on, you don't see funding in the year that construction is happening. The project has already been awarded, but the city is spending all of that money in the year for making all of the improvements to the project, such as La Vista Park, for instance, or the Stack Center.
Got it. Thank you. That clarification was very helpful. And so in this case, when we see a drop of $5 million around road and street projects, is that because we allocated a lot of that funding last year to different projects?
Thank you for that question. We have redoubled our effort to increase the amount of paving that we do. Traditionally, we do about $10 million, $11 million a year of paving. This year, my goal was to have a $15 million project. It just turned out, after we include all of the project, it is a $16.5 million project. Next year, the goal again is to have a $15 million project. The idea is that our pavement condition index, so-called PCI, that is around 71, 72, 70 being good. Our goal is to push that up to 75 by 2025. So we are doing everything that we can, looking for all sources of funding to be able to do more pavement improvement, more sidewalk improvements, which basically means more bike lanes between now and 2025.
So if I'm hearing this correctly, and thank you for that effort, I can't tell you how many times I hear about potholes, and so it's really nice to be able to say we're working on it. But when I'm looking at road and street projects, can you help me understand the difference between road and street and pavement rehabilitation? From what I understand, safe routes for seniors, that's livable neighborhoods, right?
So Mission Boulevard, for instance, is a road and street project. Main Street improvement is something that goes above and beyond just pavement, is categorized as road and streets.
Understood. And then just the last point of clarification on this breakdown is, I'm assuming staff or the amount of contractors are a limitation here too, so there's a specific focus of project that you're working on for a certain year versus other years? Because when I'm looking at road and street projects only getting $1 million, is that because we're giving pavement rehabilitation $16 million this year and we want to allocate more staff time in that direction? I'm just trying to understand how you get to these numbers and how you add or remove projects from this budget.
So for something like Main Street project, we received a source of funding from One Bay Area Grant, or OBAG, which is a federal source of funding. And then we included two safe routes for seniors intersection in that project, increased the funding, and now we are able to do, hopefully we are able to do Main Street and those two intersections, one at Main and A and the other one, as part of the project. So this is coming up with creative ideas to benefit from economies of scale, do a larger project and increase the funding for the project. When it comes to paving, we take a look at the condition of the pavement in different parts of the city and which areas need more. Like I said, now we look at social equity, economic equity, and environmental equity. And the other thing that we do right now is try to, and this doesn't happen all the time, but try to concentrate the improvements in one general area of the city. So it's not like one section here, one section up there, another one down there. For instance, this year we are going to be doing the Longwood neighborhood. Southgate neighborhood was part of the plan also. Kind of, in neighborhood by neighborhood, as opposed to just jumping all over the place.
Thank you. And then this might be a question maybe for the city manager around strategic roadmap process. So I'm feeling like a little bit of a cart before the horse sensation because we just did a retreat. I know we had to do it a little bit later because we had to fill our council a little bit later. But I'm trying to understand how the strategic roadmap priorities that council decides is informing this budget versus how many of these projects are being decided prior to us prioritizing them or even selecting them in the first place.
There's a number of these projects that were already in the works before we did the strategic roadmap retreat. And I think as we bring them back, we're trying to figure out a way because you'll have another work session which has the list of the projects by the council votes. And I think what we're going to try to do is identify those projects that were already in the works or are already underway, or there was some promise to finish a certain project, so that then if there's projects that the council added at the retreat, then we can say we need more staffing or we'd like to defer this to year 2 of the roadmap. So that'll be part of the continued conversation.
Okay, thank you. And then last comment on electric charging infrastructure. I'm just going to keep making a pitch for e-bike charging infrastructure as well. I know it doesn't have to do with the fleets, but if we're installing these, and I'm you're the expert in this subject matter, but if there are chargers that are able to accommodate multiple vehicle types and help encourage multimodal transit, I really want to make sure that's part of this plan too.
Absolutely, and we are working with EVCE to make sure that that is incorporated as part of their electric vehicle charging.
Thank you, I appreciate it. Thank you, Mayor.
Councilmember Goldstein.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Ramirez, your work has always impressed me. In the 7 years I was on Planning Commission, I think, do we do these CIPs every year?
We do, yes, sir.
So it's just hard for me to imagine that I've been part of this for such a long period of time. None of this surprises me. And, but it's really a testament, I think, to you and your staff's great work. It's consistent, it's thorough. I like how you incorporate the equity lens. Clearly there are projects that go on around the city and everybody's feeling the love, and I just think that's really cool. I also like it that we're actually now approaching having a La Vista Park. I think the last time we talked about that is there was a big tranche of money that we were looking to get, but it looks like on the current CIP we're putting about a $23.5 million budget. Wasn't there some additional amount that we were looking for as well, or is that the updated total?
Would you like to comment on HARDS? The current budget is 23 million.
Okay, all right.
Yes.
Okay, good. Yeah, I thought maybe I was missing a chunk there, but that sounds right. And so a lot of folks on that side of town are eagerly anticipating that park being stood up, as my colleague, Councilmember Bonilla Jr. has said. The roadway improvements for school safety and senior safety, that seems pretty innovative to me. As I drive around certain parts of the city, like you're talking about on Main and A Street, I could see how that could be a dangerous hazard. When we had the most recent event there this last weekend, I think it was, I actually saw people trying to cross the street there on A, getting to that section of the event on Main Street, and it was pretty frightening. I could tell they weren't real happy, and the cars that were trying to turn from Main, turning right onto A Street, were also, driving like they're dodging human beings, and that whole experience for me was kind of unsettling, and so I like the idea that you're putting in that improvement there. And like Mayor Pro Tem Andrews mentioned about the crossing at the St. Regis intersection, also, I've seen people, huh? Oh, Julie said that? I beg your pardon. Councilmember Roche. So I beg your pardon. Yeah, I've also likewise seen people look like they're under distress when they're trying to navigate that intersection, and the drivers are not very kind. The light turns red right there, but people seem to want to get to the next section, so when that light turns green, they get to go. It's kind of unsettling, I always hope people are going to be thinking particularly about pedestrian safety in that section, but I'm not always convinced that's the case. So I like that you're putting some attention there as well. Or maybe you said that that's a future item there, but in any event, I would recommend that. And one of our constituents' businesses along Foothill had mentioned that when we close off B Street, he thinks it might do traffic better, might be safer for pedestrians at the B Street intersection if A Street is left as a green light for those people that are making that left turn on the A. I don't know if that's possible. When I looked at it, it looked like there was too much traffic to do that. But I would suggest maybe looking at that, finding a way, because now what happens, and I stood there at that B and Foothill intersection for a few minutes watching traffic and pedestrians, and again, it actually looked to me like it was kind of a dangerous situation. People were literally running from cars, and cars were trying to speed through the B Street light so that they could make it through A Street, and in any event, it just didn't look good. So the sewer line and water line replacement, I realize that that's a very long-term project. And I may have asked you this question before, so forgive me if I'm being repetitive, but are the installations, those water line replacements, the construction of that, are there now seismic safety things that are being included in that?
Absolutely. When the pipeline is in the proximity to, or reasonable proximity to the Hayward Fault, those measures are taken. One of the pictures that you saw in your presentation is a line that goes up Garan Avenue. We replaced the pipeline that we had there with a pipeline that is specifically designed for seismic safety. We definitely take that into consideration, use the type of pipe that is either ductile iron or specialized pipe that is manufactured for good performance for seismic.
Great, well, that's really good to know. And I appreciate all the work, all the extra work and funding that's going into the street improvements. But when I told my daughter that we were gonna have this conversation, forgive me, she insisted that I ask you to not tear up so many roads. She's, trying to make her way through. Forgive me, please don't beat me up when I leave tonight. I told her I would ask. So, yes. But honestly, I think you do a really fantastic job of making sure that those projects kind of happen all around the city and not just in one spot. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Councilmember Goldstein, if I may add, when it comes to like crossing a major road like Mission Boulevard, one of the things that we have done is we have implemented what it is called a lead pedestrian interval, which basically means that the light changes for pedestrians first, gives them up to 7 seconds to start crossing the street before the cars get the green ball, because then they start turning and causing problems with pedestrians. So I just wanted to mention that.
Great, thank you. And thank you for your excellent work. And please thank your staff, your whole team, for the quality work that they bring to the city. It's noted.
Thank you.
Thank you. I have no questions, and I agree with everybody on the council.
Sounds great.
How's that?
Thank you.
And I did see a hand go up with Councilmember Zermeño, and I'm sure it'll be short.
Very quick, just
quick.
simply thanking and appreciating you, Mr. Ameri, because you're a can-do individual for us. You did not say one no to all of our requests and our questions. So it's a very positive, constructive attitude, and I thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. We have a great team in Public Works and Utilities.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Ameri. So I would like to close this item and then proceed to the Climate Action Plan, considerations for new general plan policies and programs related to the city's Climate Action Plan. And I believe Director Ameri is back for another item.
Yes, and I'm quickly going to turn this over to Eric Pearson, our Environmental Services Manager, to introduce the item. Eric?
Absolutely. Mr. Pearson, go ahead.
Thank you, Director Ameri. Good evening, Mayor and Council and community members. I'm Eric Pearson, Environmental Services Manager for the city, and presenting with me tonight is Nicole Grucke, our Sustainability Specialist. The Climate Action Plan update is part of a larger project update to update other chapters of the city's general plan. Those other sections being updated include the housing element, the hazards element, and we are preparing a new environmental justice element this year. The city's first Climate Action Plan was adopted in 2009, and then it was updated in 2014 to include the policies and programs that are needed to meet our 2020 greenhouse gas emission reduction goal, which was 20%, and we were able to achieve that goal actually 2 years early in 2018. Then in 2020, Council adopted new emission reduction goals that are shown on this slide. The 55% reduction goal was adopted to align with the state's 2030 goal. And the purpose of this Climate Action Plan update is to outline the measures and actions that are needed to enable Hayward to meet this 2030 goal. This goal is not going to be easy to achieve, and to be successful, the entire community will need to participate. Once the city has identified the measures with which to move forward, the consultant team will estimate the emission reductions for each of the draft actions. And now for the draft measures and actions, first the measures are, they identify specific goals, and then the actions are the supportive programs that will accomplish those goals. We currently have 181 draft actions, and the full list is in an attachment to the staff report that was provided to the council today. The draft measures and actions are organized into 5 sectors that are shown here on this slide. They include building energy, which is electricity and natural gas. And then we have transportation, solid waste, water and wastewater, and carbon sequestration. While we still need to quantify each of the actions for emission reductions, our consultant team tells us it's likely that we'll need all or most of these actions in order to meet the 2030 target. When we presented these actions to the Council Sustainability Committee, the committee requested that we prepare a survey so that we could collect feedback from the full council. And so now I'll turn it over to Nicole to talk about the survey.
So on March 13th, staff presented a draft survey featuring 19 of the 181 actions to the Council Sustainability Committee. That survey was sent to council members in late March. The actions that were featured in the survey included actions that are labeled structural change, which means that they will result in GHG emission reductions if implemented. Not included were actions that are already underway due to council support and actions that are supporting measures to the structural change actions. So for instance, actions like feasibility studies and building partnerships with community members and community organizations were not included, although we understand they are imperative to the success. I'd like to thank the council for participating in the survey to help inform our presentation and our discussion today. So turning to the building energy sector and kind of the trends that staff saw from the council members' survey responses was a support for ordinances banning the expansion of gas infrastructure and new gas appliances in new buildings and requiring energy efficiency and electrification to existing buildings at time of building retrofit. General comments included banning gas in new buildings and requiring all electric by 2045 may be difficult, but are good for goal setting, and that the other actions will help us get there. It was also noted by a council member that exemptions of existing homes should be considered where necessary to protect low-income residents. Now looking at the transportation actions, the trend that we saw were support for a staff position to pursue funding and implement sustainable transportation actions, support to prioritize better public and active transit infrastructure. We also heard from a council member that they wanted to prioritize rebates for e-bikes and e-scooters over having public hubs. And we heard that comment reiterated during the strategic roadmap session last week. To also deprioritize actions involving taxes and parking fees. So staff would be interested in knowing if deprioritizing these actions to a later timeline to the 2027-2030 timeline satisfies council's concerns, or if they should be removed altogether. Looking at the solid waste actions, which are on the left of the screen, bans on problem solid waste materials were favored slightly over fees, with a note to focus on eliminating the materials from being released into the environment at the source before a fee is implemented. And looking at the carbon sequestration actions on the right, there was a priority to implement an urban tree canopy study to identify areas in Hayward with low tree coverage, and then to implement a tree planting program to eliminate that difference. I will now turn it back over to Eric to conclude the presentation.
All right, thank you, Nicole. So for next steps, staff is going to be using council's input to finalize the draft measures and actions. And then the consultant team will quantify the estimated emissions reductions associated with each measure and action. And so we wanted to get council's input at this time before we do the quantification, as we are budgeted to do this quantification only once. And several of the proposed actions will have significant fiscal impacts and will require an increase in staff resources. So after we complete this quantification, then staff will prepare a detailed assessment of the fiscal impacts associated with implementing the new climate action plan. And we anticipate presenting the new draft climate action plan to the Council Sustainability Committee and then the City Council this fall. So we're recommending that Council accept public comments on this item, review and comment on the report, and specifically comment on the draft measures and actions. As mentioned earlier, we'll likely need most of the 181 actions in order to meet the 2030 target. Of those 181 actions, about 100 are currently scheduled for to be implemented in the next few years. And so we may be able to schedule some of the lower priority actions for later years. So we'd like to hear from the council if there are specific actions that should be removed altogether. So that concludes our presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. And Director Mary, I just wanted to tell you thank you very much. I know both presentations were very thorough, and I think you also had both presentations within about 5 or 7 slides. So I appreciate it. Thank you very much for that. Were you having your? Oh, you're. Oh. Oh, okay. Okay, I will. Okay. Perfect. Let me write that down. Okay. Councilmember Syrup.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you for the presentation. This is the kind of work that makes Hayward a leader in the climate sector, so I'm just really grateful for the work that we do as a city, and I'm excited to continue doing it. I think just as a little bit of context, we received a list of the various measures a little later via email, and so I'm wondering if there's a process where we're able to provide input maybe over email or directing it towards sustainability staff? I just want to check in with either Director Mary or our City Manager McAdoo on how to go about doing that.
And I apologize we accidentally left it out of the packet. So yes, if to the extent you can provide comments today, that would be great. But again, we'll be coming back to the council for additional discussion. So if there is additional feedback, feel free to provide it by email.
Understood. And this would be prior to the fall representation, is that correct?
Hopefully well before then, because I think the fall presentation, we've got to start doing, as they said, the analysis of the different measures. So, in the next couple of weeks, if you could provide feedback, that would be helpful.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. I mean, this is just significant work, so I want to make sure we don't miss our opportunity to weigh in.
Councilmember Syrup, I apologize, but I missed a step.
Oh.
I apologize.
Rewind everything that I said.
No, forgive me. I have to open up for public comment, and let's see. I don't see anyone in the audience, and I don't see I don't see anyone online. So I will close public comment, and I will reopen questions from the dais. Councilmember Syed, you may proceed. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. If it helps, you can treat my previous comment as a public comment. I also was just kicked out of the meeting and I'm rejoining, so I'm going to yield my time for now, and then I'm going to request to join after.
Okay. Councilmember Roach, and then Councilmember Zermania will follow.
Thank you. Yeah, I got to see this on the Sustainability Committee, so thank you so much, for bringing it back to us today. I have to admit, I was looking for the attachment and I didn't get it on time, but we have talked about it before. So I just wanted to ask, our goal, it's obviously a really aggressive goal to the 2045 goal. And I just wondered in general, has COVID now set us back on the goal because, transportation ridership is down on public transportation? Or is this offset now by a new work-at-home environment, a new virtual way of doing work? How do you see that? Maybe that's to Eric, about how this sets us back on our goal.
Yes, thanks, Councilmember Roche. I think that's a great question. And we did see a very significant reduction in emissions in the last couple of years during the pandemic as more people stayed at home. We've already seen the transportation data, seeing that the emissions are increasing as more people are back on the roads. But I think in terms of, people actually continuing to stay home and work at home a greater percentage of the time, I think that it remains to be seen. So we are going to be doing another greenhouse gas inventory soon, and we'll see how that pans out.
Thanks. And then I know this is something I've asked in the past, but when we measure greenhouse gas emissions, we're not measuring the flow of cars, that go through the city every day, coming and going. And is there a way to measure that? And is there a way to reduce that emissions for the city? Have you looked at that?
Well, in terms of the way we measure, it used to be based on kind of computer models from the Regional Transportation Commission and their modeling of traffic. We've switched over to data that's more based on cell phone activity and where and how fast those phones are moving. In terms of making an impact on the vehicles that are coming through Hayward, I think that's another discussion that we need to have about kind of regional traffic.
Okay. Thanks. I'm going to pass for right now, and I appreciate all of the work. Thank you so much.
Councilmember Zermania.
Thank you. Nicole, Eric, and Mr. Mary, thank you very much for a very good green presentation. I think it's a way that's going to make us further leaders in the greening of cities and even the United States. So thank you very much. And I want to thank my colleagues for actually prioritizing permanently closing one of our downtown streets, because I think that's important in that less cars in our downtown, less carbon that we will be emitting out into the atmosphere. A couple of businesses have told me that they favor that idea, so let's see if we can work on that. please. On page 4, well, I do like the different missions, and then page 4 lists staff position, or that is 6 possible ways of actually doing the climate action plan. I have a yes on all of them, from creating a staff position, conducting urban tree canopy, electrification exemptions. That's important in order to ensure that renters and owners who have difficult time will not be burdened by another hit on their pocketbook. So that's very, very important equity. Ban on solid waste materials. Look for grants in case we realize that $720,000 budget is not enough, and maybe even look into Measure D funds to possibly increase that amount, because these items are very, very good, and they are strong, so we need to make sure that we carry them. So thank you very much, and if you need any help counting trees, you let me know.
Councilmember Goldstein.
Thank you, Mayor. I concur with my colleagues. Great report. And it is exciting to be part of a city that takes climate action seriously. And our team in the city, Eric and your team, you guys are doing a fantastic job. I especially like the contemplation. I don't know if we've actually come up with a fee on single-use food service implements, but I think it should be at least contemplated. And of course, all of the alternatives. Hopefully we're getting out there with our restaurant and food service community and letting them know that that there's a better way to do that for the environment. And if you want to see some of the ideas that have been discussed, you can visit the stopwaste.org website. Electrification waivers for low-income residents, I think it's going to be necessary. Otherwise, if we implement that every time a house is sold that it get upgraded, it does place an extra economic burden on the buyer, as well potentially on the seller to do something while they're selling the property to make it attractive for the buyer. So I think there needs to be some kind of balance there. I would actually like to see a program in the banks where if funding is necessary, that they won't include that roughly $40,000. I mean, if you had to switch from gas to full electric and also add for vehicle charging, the panel upgrades, running the wiring, and all of that stuff in today's dollars would run about $40,000. So if there's a way to do that with the banks where they're not calculating that 40 against the loan to value ratio, because that adversely affects borrowers. If there was some way to do that, that would be ideal. But I don't know if we have that much clout in getting the banking industry to do that. But maybe we can, let our colleagues in Sacramento and Washington, D.C. know that that's potentially an issue. Eric, do you know how we're doing on implementing food recovery programs in the city?
I don't have, excuse me, I don't have data off the top of my head, but I know we are working closely with Stop Waste, and they are coordinating with all of the food producers in the county and matching them up with agencies and people who can use the excess food.
Great, excellent. So for those of you that haven't had any experience with that whole line of thought there, what that's about is saving on the energy to create food that is otherwise being thrown away. So the old way of doing it is a restaurant would make the food, and at the end of the day, they would just throw it all in the dumpster. And then from a equity lens, throwing food away when there are hungry people in the streets is just morally bankrupt to me. So this is a way of making sure that those foods that are left over go to like food banks and South Hayward Parish and other places that can distribute it to people that actually need it, and they'll use it. And then I would like our city to somehow advertise, amplify resource.stopwaste.org, that website, and I hope all of you on the dais will take a moment to look at that later. But resources.stopwaste.org, anything that you have that you're trying to dispose of or renew, refresh it so that you can make longer use out of it, or you want to find a way to donate it or a safe way to dispose of it. It can be anything from batteries, mattresses, clothing, collectibles, whatever it is you have. It's a database that actually links you for whatever that item is, links you to all of the different ways that you can reuse, recycle, or otherwise donate. So I hope as part of this program that we'll make a little extra effort to also add that resource into our printed and online materials. Thank you.
Councilmember Bonilla Jr.
Thank you. I am sure that these projects align with what we need to do. I'm not a climate expert per se, although I'm very passionate about making sure that we're protecting and preserving our climate and that we're reducing greenhouse emissions. So, I guess I have a high level of confidence in what staff is proposing based off of historical trends on us being leaders in this space, and more importantly, us reaching our 2020 goals 2 years early. So, I'm hopeful that the measures that are put forward in this plan are going to allow us to meet the goals that we've set and we've agreed to sooner than the projected target. I appreciate that Hayward is a leader in this space and in confronting climate change, and I think that this is a pretty aggressive plan that's going to keep us in the forefront of doing that. A couple questions that I had was, okay, so this climate action plan is a part of the general plan and is being updated alongside of multiple other plans, including this new environmental justice element. Can you help me understand the relationship between the climate action plan and this new environmental justice element of the general plan, please?
Sure, yeah. So the environmental justice element is likely to be integrated throughout the general plan to make sure that we are benefiting the communities that have been neglected in the past, those that are most impacted by, maybe close to the freeway from poor air quality or other environmental impacts. So we're looking at everything from air quality to food scarcity and food resources to tree canopy coverage. And so there's a lot of close tie-ins between the environmental justice element and the climate action plan. And we're making sure that all of the programs and actions and policies are well coordinated so that we don't have duplication across. But it'll be integrated in the general plan, similar to the way that the current general plan is, or the current climate action plan is in the general plan.
Got it. Because in my mind, those two seem to be so similar, but now I understand, I guess, the nuance between the two, but I think even looking at our climate action plan through the lens of climate justice is an important lens. I also, I know that these goals are aggressive, so I appreciate the focus on providing economic support to those that, may be cost burdened by being able to meet some of these measures. So, anything we can do to continue to incentivize or subsidize, the electrification and the reduction of, these emissions, I think is going to be important, especially in our low income communities, because it's not necessarily is easy to just swipe out, all of your utilities for something that's electric. I guess the question that I had around adopting the REACH code effective January 1st, 2026, that will ban gas in all new construction, can that be done sooner? Why are we waiting until 2026, I guess is my question. Is there a particular reason?
I think, there was, so we just adopted, I guess it was about 6 months ago, the REACH code that took effect this year. There was concern that there's still some technologies to figure out in terms of building new industrial facilities without natural gas, and also for restaurants. There's still some questions about how cost effective it is to build a restaurant that is all electric. And I think in most cases it can be done, but there's still some cases where it's going to be more challenging. So I think just from an economic development standpoint, it was decided that we should just encourage electrification for non-residential buildings at this point. But yes, in fact, but to answer your question, we could amend the REACH code at any time to, to regulate different types of buildings.
Got it. If 2026 is a doable timeline to meet these goals, then I guess I'm comfortable with it. But if we needed to look at that date to potentially, look at bringing that in sooner in order to be able to reach these goals, I would, be open to that discussion as well. I appreciate the broad level of kind of support and partnership that we're working on within the community in order to achieve these, I would say, very aggressive objectives. As noted in the staff report, it's really going to take all of us in our community coming together and having some sense of responsibility and ownership in this space in order to continue to keep Hayward a leader in this space. And, the benefits of us being a leader in that space, of course, directly benefit everyone that's living in our beautiful community. Again, when we talk about, one-time cost and funding financial options, I think it's like BE 2.2. It talks about, banning or expanding the bans on natural gas infrastructure and requiring appliances to be replaced and to be decarbonized where technology is feasible and where it's cost effective. Again, I just really went through this with the lens of, how do we provide as much financial incentives or subsidies as possible to make this work for those in our community that are the lowest of income. Again, the partnerships that are rooted throughout all of these projects are pretty impressive. The last question that I had, actually I have two more. So when we look at the timeframes, like for an example, if it's 2023 through 2025, are we to assume that the project will start sometime within that time frame, or that the project will begin, let's say if it starts with 2023 through 2025, is that the start and end year? I'm just trying to understand what the time frame represents.
I think it's going to depend on the project. There's some of these projects have already started, but there may be some that may need to wait for council authorization, or so it could be that they will start after the climate action plan is adopted. So might actually begin early 2024 for some of the actions.
So I guess the time frame represents a possible start date of when the project will start. I'm just trying to understand, because like for an example, if you take T2.4, it says 2026 through 2030. Does that mean it's going to start sometime in that 4-year period, or does that mean it's going to begin in 2026 and finish in 2030?
No, I think the intent is that it starts in that time frame that's indicated.
Got it. I guess in future, some of these timeframes seem a little bit long to me, so it's nebulous, a 4-year timeframe, when to start, when to finish. So I don't know if we can kind of hone that in a little bit, but that would be helpful for my perspective. And I guess I love, the categories, the pillars of partnership and equity and expanding this, just all of that is just great. And what we're doing for students and how we're looking at, making things free or subsidized, and how we're making sure that, we're leveraging partnerships to continue to create equity in this work is really important to me. And then I guess the last question I have is under T2.9, it's partnerships, and it's collaborate and engage with AC Transit to understand how they're addressing the innovative clean transit rule and their plan to electrify their bus fleet. When I see the AC Transit buses going up and down Mission, I thought I saw, like on all of the buses, this thing that says like 0 emissions. Is that kind of the case? And is that different than electrifying all their bus fleet? I guess, are all of them 0 emissions is my first question. And secondly, if they're 0 emissions, would that imply that their bus fleet is electrified?
Well, I think that's the goal, is to have it fully electrified or using hydrogen fuel cells, but they're not there yet. But in fact, the California Air Resources Board just, I think it was about 2 weeks ago, adopted new clean fleet rules that's going to require 0 emission vehicles for any fleet that has more than 50 vehicles. So AC Transit is going to be subject to that new rule. So I think it applies to vehicles that are purchased starting in 2026. I think there's some different dates for depending on the type of the fleet.
Thank you. And on my first review of these projects, again, not being the expert, but just kind of being a community voice in this process, it doesn't seem like there's any projects that should be removed as long as we make sure that we're creating pathways for low-income residents in our neighborhoods to be able to achieve some of these really great goals. And I can't wait to see us, pursue these opportunities and continue to be a leader in this space, not only for the generations here, but for all the generations of Haywardians that are yet to come. So thank you.
Councilmember Andrews.
Thank you for the report, and thank you, staff, for highlighting some of the comments that made by our council members. It seems like you're definitely tracking what we're saying in presentations and what we're saying in committee, and showing priorities from the surveys. I said a lot of things in committee, but I'll highlight some of the projects that I would like to see prioritized, as 181 initiatives is very lofty to attempt to complete, but I think in general I have a couple of themes that I would like to see prioritized. So I actually was trying to give some numbers in terms of the IDs for some of these projects, but SW 216, plastic straws, I believe, Keep Hayward Clean and Green submitted a letter of support in looking at our food establishments and figuring out how can we reduce waste there. If you all are interested in coming to a Keep Hayward Clean and Green event, you can see the results of some of that. Plastic straws are still a huge issue in our community, so I unfortunately try to support our establishments, and I see plastic straws there. Just wanted to see if there's any updates on what we can do to resolve that.
So Stop Waste recently released a model ordinance that cities can adopt to regulate single-use foodware items, and plastic straws can be one of those items. So it's an ordinance that can be customized depending on the desires of the individual city. So that's something we plan to bring to the Sustainability Committee this fall. That would be great. And then also support of various initiatives here to work with East Bay Community Energy, BE 1.7, as well as 2.12 to 116 is with Block Power. Very interested in working with these agencies for incentives, as well as looking at T4, 9, and 411 in terms of EV charging stations, and seeing if there's some incentives we can work with them on getting more of those installed, especially if we're looking at electrifying our own fleet. We should be looking at electrifying the community, as we just heard that Alameda County is like the top in terms of purchasing these vehicles. So definitely want to put more energy into that. Oh, okay. And then also working with 3.7 regarding working with the chamber on having more education around that. And I am curious about the effectiveness of PACE. I have seen some articles about that particular program, so I would love to see more information about if that's working out. And then B 4.1,
connecting with EBCE about being carbon neutral by 2030. I would love to see what they're doing in meeting that goal. EG 1.7, 1.8 SGIP program and solar. Yes, I would like to see us participate in that. Just for people who may not know, what is it, the self-generating incentive program? Is that the name of SGIP, I believe? Pretty sure. I'm pretty sure that is, right? So I know there's some projects that have been submitted to that program, and they're actually jumping up the priority list higher than anticipated. So I think there's some opportunities that we could take advantage with that program. And I know there was a long list, but I think we can submit to see if we can get some incentives back for that program. For EG 1.9 regarding the wastewater treatment facility, are we doing a lot of those initiatives already for that? And does this need to be prioritized if we already are doing that as part of the $200 million upgrade for that facility?
I think there's always lots of upgrades happening at the treatment plant. I'm pulling up the list here to see what your
EG 1.9.
What we're
I would say I have the page number. Okay, so page 10, and it's the second from the bottom. Oh, what is that? Yeah, no, that's SGIP. Yeah, the last one on the page. Expand the methane recovery systems and digestion gas conversion.
Yes, I'm not sure if Director Mary might be able to address that one.
Are we already doing that?
So we are already doing that, but it can be made more efficient.
Okay.
The capacity of the storage there can be increased. We are looking into ways of making that more efficient. Just want to remind the council that right now the wastewater treatment plant is fully, totally self-sufficient and exports its excess energy to other city facilities.
Okay, thanks for that reminder. So this is just to make it even more
correct.
efficient. Okay, all right. So I would say that if we're already doing an upgrade, we already have this as a function, then we can reconsider the placement of that. Yes, on continue to implement bike pedestrian master plan. 1.5, T1.5, T110, partnerships with hard and schools, and then T11, 12, 111 and 112, the e-bikes and more programs for low-income communities for car sharing, interested in seeing that. And it sounds like you're gonna need more staff. And then also interested in T2.8, 914 regarding AC transit, looking at access, electrifying, and understanding what they're doing there, as Councilmember Bonilla has highlighted, and interested in providing clipper cards. I would love to see more implementation of that. Also understanding the metrics of 3.7 for low-income communities. I believe that was in regards to, let me see, is that 3.7? In regards to define equity metrics for implementation of disincentives based on feedback in local income communities of color, and structure the disincentive programs to meet these metrics. I don't know if that's something that the GARE program can look at as well. And then T311 was a little confusing to me because it says increase broadband internet access at a program to encourage more working from home and reducing the need for travel. We kind of talked about broadband, so I think there might be some thinking of the communication we're talking about broadband in the different presentations, because it sounds like we're going to increase broadband, but it was also private. So I just think we need to kind of watch our terminology when we were talking about these actions. And then T4.3, EV charging stations, yes. Yes, more stop waste grants. I think you might need someone that's just focused on grants in general. And then definitely water conservation devices for low-income communities. So all that to say is focus on low-income communities, go after grants, kind of get the gist of all the items that I highlighted. Thank you.
Thank
you. Councilmember Syrup.
Thank you. I apologize for dropping out earlier. My Granicus crashed. I was curious, I spoke to a resident the other day that lives pretty close to the airport, and when the jets are getting spun up, they have to run around their house and close all their windows, otherwise they can't breathe in their own home. And, I understand that the airport plays a significant economic role in our city, but I'm curious if we've conducted a study, an environmental study on our airport, especially as it relates to greenhouse gas emissions, or if that's something we might be able to incorporate as a potential project to at least get some data around its impact.
We have not done that study, but we appreciate your comment and we'll look into it. I can share with you that the number of flights at the airport is a fraction of what it used to be several decades ago. The numbers have gone down. We went from 400,000 to now 130,000 or so. So it is much less than what it used to be, but you're right. Still, we have to look into the greenhouse gas impacts.
Thank you. And if I'm not mistaken, the number is increasing. It dropped significantly during COVID, and we're going back up. And we just approved another hangar recently to welcome more planes. And I'm not opposed to that hangar. I voted for it. But I just want to know the impact that the airport is having. And so I guess what I'm curious about in this process is what room do we have to introduce new measures? I'm not trying to overload staff, obviously, but that is a major contributor to the air quality in the area.
We will be happy to look into it and come back before you with some information. But even going down during the COVID and coming back up, we are talking about the range of 100,000 to 130,000, not 400,000, which was the number some decades ago.
Of course, regardless of private planes, CO2 or greenhouse gas emissions are significantly higher than a private automobile or a bus, for example. So
correct.
I still think if we're over 100,000 operations, it's worth studying and understanding the impact of. I was curious, I know that Save the Bay had a lot of suggestions around our climate action plan, and I was curious if you could speak to which measures may have been incorporated by them, or they may have suggested and we have decided to incorporate into our climate action plan draft.
Eric, you want to cover that, or you want me to take it?
Yes, thank you. So Save the Bay made extensive comments, mostly related to adaptation and protecting the shoreline. We have incorporated most of those comments into the draft safety element, which was presented to the Council Sustainability Committee a couple months ago. And so that safety element will be coming to Council this fall. And we can share that report with you.
Great, thank you. And then as far as strategic roadmap initiatives, were there any projects that were suggested or prioritized at our recent strategic roadmap retreat that have been incorporated into this climate action plan draft?
Yes, I'd say the EV charging is already incorporated. Fleet electrification, tree planting. I'm trying to remember if there's anything else that I saw on the roadmap, but I think there's definitely some close tie-ins.
Got it. And then the way the projects are presented, are they listed in a way where they're being prioritized based on anticipated benefit to the city? I'm just trying to figure out how to prioritize these, because if we have suggestions or we want to make or suggest certain changes, it'd be helpful to know which ones we think are the highest priority versus the lowest. and then have a better understanding of what we might be able to move around to make room for certain measures?
Well, I think one way to look at this would be to, we didn't share with you today the pie chart showing our emissions inventory, but the significant majority of our emissions come from transportation, vehicles, cars and trucks. Mm-hmm. So anything related to reducing vehicle emissions, I think is going to get us a long way to meeting the 2030 goal. And then natural gas emissions used from our buildings. It is kind of the second largest slice of the pie.
Great, thank you. And I just wanted to echo support for phasing out single-use plastics like plastic straws, for example, or plastic bags. I think the idea of a fee on the consumer is putting that cost burden on the resident, as opposed to just finding a way to slowly transition the business model to using more sustainable materials. And so I'm in support of exploring that further down the line. And those are all my comments. Thank you, Mayor.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I remember several years ago, my wife and I were up at South Lake Tahoe, and we were coming home. We stopped in Truckee, and we went to a restaurant. And this was like during the paper and plastic straw discussion, and we started to, and there was a lot of brouhaha about how plastic straws were cheaper and paper straws were more expensive, and it was going to impact the consumer. And So we walk into a restaurant right there in downtown Truckee, and I asked for a soda, and they put a soda in front of me, and it came with a paper straw, and it struck me, and so I asked the waitress. I said, "You have paper straws?" And she's like, "Well, yes, because we live right next to the lake." I mean, it was a non-starter. I mean, it was like, well, of course we have paper straws, and it's just better for the environment. And she was very well versed in the impact that paper straws had on the environment. I mean, it was like a non-starter. So since then, I have been convinced. And I have I have several friends that own restaurants, and we talk about this often. The other alternative, it's funny because I never thought I would ever do this. In fact, when I would see them on the shelf at the coffee shop, I always kind of chuckled and said, "Who would buy this?" Well, I did. I bought a metal straw, when it comes with I bought one. I mean, I have a metal straw in my truck. I have a metal straw at home. And so, in fact, I just looked it up right now, and you can buy like a package of metal straws, on Amazon. Not endorsing Amazon, but you can, buy, a package of metal straws and have them, But of course, you want to clean them, after you use them. But nonetheless, the other thing, and I'm going to continue my rant for a moment. The other thing is, we all, and I'm going to steal your cup. We all just received these nice, fancy thermos cups, and and they don't require a straw. You can just drink right, I'm sure you could put a straw in there, but they don't require a straw. And as I'm just looking across the dais, everybody here is holding their cup, and I'm of course, and I know you have a plastic there, but I'm not gonna. I won't say that out loud to the world, but if you don't happen to have one of these, I think one of the smartest sort of ideas I've seen come out of eliminating straws is the coffee tops, and from a cafe here in Hayward, where it's like a zippy cup, kind of takes us back when we were 5 years old, 2 years old, but it's an alternative. So I mean, there is things that restaurants are doing. Because today I did eat at a restaurant. They did put a soda on my table, but it was automatic. The waitress pulled out a plastic straw and stuck it on, and I didn't use it, right? So I took the straw and I put it up on top of the napkin container, and there it is, right? And it was a straw. Anyways, anything we can do to combat straws, and I should say this. I should also say this. What we do up here, it really does have an impact. Something as small as a straw does have an impact of what happens, what we see when we're at Keep Hayward Clean and Green. And I'll give you a case in point. And I know Mr. O'Meara will agree, and I know Mr. Pearson will certainly agree, is that we had a problem in this city with cigarette butts, right? Cigarette butts. And we went through this, and plastic bags, right? Cigarette butts and plastic bags. And we outlawed plastic bags. We literally got rid of plastic bags. And now we see very few plastic bags, if any, swirling around in the streets and just randomly, aimlessly, out there. And that's something that we did here. And we, when I'm walking up and down the shoreline, I rarely see. In fact, if I do see a plastic bag, it's like I say, oh, like I panic. Like, oh my God, there's a plastic bag. That was. Do you pick it up? I do pick it up. Absolutely, we pick it up. In fact. Well, I won't go because then I'll sound like a fanatic, but I'm not. So, but the other thing was cigarette butts. Right? Cigarette butts. Cigarette butts were everywhere. When we'd go out on Keep Hayward Clean and Green, I just, and then they'd be at the oddest places, like places out on, in the medians. Like, who smokes cigarettes in the median? Right? Okay. So what did we do? I know this is going to sound, crazy. But what we did was we essentially restricted smoking in public. You literally can't smoke cigarettes anywhere publicly in the city of Hayward. There are some places you can, but generally speaking, when you're out on the sidewalk in public and so forth, you're prohibited from smoking. Well, the impact of that is that when you go to Keep Hayward Clean and Green, right, Councilmember Cermeño, you see very few cigarette butts out on the street. It's absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing. They're still out there. You still see, but you certainly don't see them at the volume that we used to see them, right? So I say that because I think the recommendations that Councilmember Andrews outlines, I think it, and to again reference Councilmember Syrup, clearly it shows that even the littlest things that we can do up here, it does make an impact. It does make an impact. And so, anyways, I wanted to just sort of summarize on that. I wrote here, see, plastic straws. What else I put here? Oh, I think Councilmember Syrup said something that sort of made me think about this. 880, 580, and the 238, all those freeways sort of, run up against neighborhoods, right? And I'm curious, I don't know I don't think we've done it, but has an agency looked at air quality along the 880 corridor or the 580 corridor and looked at sort of the impacts of air quality in those areas? Because this I do know is, some time ago, I guess about 15, almost 20 years ago, the Alameda County Public Health Department, they published that report called Life and Death Due to Unnatural Causes that spurred the video, the documentary, like a 15, 15 episode documentary. But basically, one of the things that report outlines was some of the unhealthiest areas of the county. And the highest child mortality rate, right? Which is babies dying before age 1. The highest mortality rate in Alameda County was along that 10 street corridor of East 14th between 580 and the railroad, right? Right behind, 580, 238, and then of course going south, north and south is the railroad. So I guess the question I want to ask has there been, an updated, current, thorough sort of report on that? And have we looked at air quality along those corridors that are heavily traveled every day?
Mayor Salinas, go ahead, Eric. Go ahead.
I was just going to say that we do take advantage of the statewide mapping program called Cal EnviroScreen, which looks at air quality by census tract. And then, more locally, the Bay Area Air Quality Management District does study this, and they do have programs, where they offer air filtration devices for low-income customers and people that are reliant on medical devices.
Perfect. Yeah. Okay. So, and I guess a lot of those solutions or strategies come out of reports and data that is collected along those corridors, correct? Yes. Okay. Correct. Okay. All right. Good. Okay. Well, let me thank you. I want to just show appreciation to everybody with their comments and for all of your input on this. I know we will see this again. And again, I wanted to thank staff for all of your work. And Mr. Ameri, I know your department has literally been leading our city in this space. I know not only have you and your department led this city, but we also have our members on the Council Sustainability Committee that has done an outstanding job. Councilmember Zermeño, Councilmember Roach, I think and Councilmember Andrews are all in the sustainability.
She's the new chair.
And Councilmember Roach is the new chair of that committee. And so if Councilmember Roach is the committee, then I see banning paper or plastic straws in the near future. I'm kidding. And bringing back zippy cups at every corner. Okay. So again, thank you for your work on that, and thank you to your colleagues on the committee for that. That's been you keep us on the forefront. You keep us relevant in this space, and so thank you very much for your work on that.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor and Council Member, for your support, for your leadership. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, so I would like to close this item, and then I'd like to open up council reports and announcements. Mayor Pro Tem Andrews.
Thank you, Mayor. I want to highlight an event that is coming up on Saturday, May 20th from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. It is the Eden Area ROP Automotive Department at 26316 Hesperian Boulevard. Hayward PD will be doing a catalytic converter etching event in partnership with Eden Area ROP. This will assist with anti-theft and in regards to catalytic converters. What we've discovered is that other communities are doing this in efforts to stop this practice as best we can. If a catalytic converter is retrieved and it has an ID number on it, we'll be able to return it to the owner, and then also it would help with assisting those who are taking them. So thank you to Hayward PD for doing this very proactive event. It is appointment only, so you will need to email HPD Community Events at hayward-ca.gov. And if you would like more information from our crime prevention specialist, Specialist Romero, you can call 510-293-1043.
Thank you. Councilmember Cermeño.
Thank you. Let's see, this Saturday, you have an opportunity to go do some rodeo. We have Rowell Rodeo Time over by 580, please. Anyway, it's fantastic. It's a good opportunity for the Hayward Rotary Club. 3 of us up in the bench here are members. And we will be working. This is one of the biggest fundraisers for the Hayward Rotary Club, so I really encourage you to go Friday, Saturday, and Sunday from 10 a.m. to 5. It's a fantastic time. I think I will be cooking or serving nachos. I think the mayor also cooks. Dan, I don't know what he's going to sell, my colleague Goldstein, and then I hear that maybe my 2 colleagues over here will also be with us. So help us out. Have a good time. The rodeo business is fantastic. It's really exciting. And then also the library at 2 p.m. on Saturday has a Spanish book club. So if you want to practice your Spanish, see you at Saturday on 3rd floor at 2 p.m. Thank you very much.
I believe you were saying Rowell Ranch Rodeo, right? Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah. I wanted to make sure. Yes, it is rodeo week. Starting tomorrow, Thursday, Friday. Of course, Friday is the PBR, bull riding. Saturday is all day rodeo. Sunday, again, is rodeo. Of course, Saturday night is the cowboy dance and barbecue. I'm just saying. It's at the Rowell Ranch Rodeo. The Rowell Ranch Rodeo. It really is a fun event. A lot of folks don't know, but the roots of the Rowell Ranch Rodeo started in downtown Hayward. The farmers in the area would compete with one another, and before the annual competition, they would showcase all of their livestock down B Street, and the end of the livestock parade, the pet parade, and by the way, this was the beginning of the annual pet parade. And I know City Clerk Linz, we did a pet parade one year. I think it was called the Santa Paws Parade, where we had Santa Paws. Yeah, we had one where, we're gonna have to bring that back. We're gonna bring that back.
8 years ago.
Yeah, and but what would happen is that the parade route ended at Burbank Elementary School, and that's what started the Rowell Ranch Rodeo. Anyways, just there's some Hayward history. Every council meeting you get a little bit of history. Okay, if there are no other reports and announcements, there are, I'm sorry, Councilmember Goldstein.
No, it's okay. Apology accepted, but the mistake was mine since I didn't push the button for it. But anyway, Hayward Police Department on Saturday is doing an all-day motorcycle skills training class. I will be there. And if there's any other motorcycle enthusiasts that are within earshot, you're invited to come also. I'm not, it's by registration. I'm not sure if they've maxed out yet, but in the past, it's been a real fun event. And I've taken similar classes like this in the past, and every time I take the class, I learn a vital life-saving skill. And my bike is 940 pounds plus me. And so being able to handle a motorcycle safely in a town like Hayward is, vitally important. So strongly recommend and encourage it.
When do participants get a free Harley Davidson to participate?
Well, I could give mine away, but I'm not going to. Yeah.
Okay.
You have to bring your own.
You have to bring your own.
And I have 2 words for you: collapsible straw.
That would be kind of weird if you had a collapsible straw. That means there would be a crease in the straw, and then that defeats the. Anyways, okay. If there are no council referrals, and so, ladies and gentlemen, let's see, am I missing it? No, ladies and gentlemen, have a good night. Meeting adjourned.